humbling experience the amount of support and grace I have received on this journey. A little bit about me, I'm Amanda McCellon. I am the organizer of this event. I have been in city government for the past 10 years. I moved back to Oklahoma about 7 years ago. I was born in Oklahoma. My Choctaw ancestors came to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears, and so Oklahoma is my home. I get asked a lot, why don't I just move? If I don't like it here, why don't I just move? And my response to that is always because number one, this is my home, and I'm not going to leave my home. Number two, I carry so much privilege that other people don't carry, that I see it as my duty and my job to stay here and to fight. Because I'm allowed to move. I sit at tables that other people aren't allowed to sit at, and I take that privilege very seriously. Some of you may know or not know, I lost my job 1 week after the election due to my political TikTok account. And so I am currently unemployed as I do all this. But what that has taught me, a lot of people have said I probably shouldn't talk about it because I'm still looking for a job and I should be quiet and I shouldn't talk about being terminated for my political beliefs. But here's the thing, if we don't talk about it, they win. If we don't talk about it, the bad guy wins. If we don't talk about it, the people who are not doing the right thing win. And so I'm here to talk about it, and I just trust that it'll all work out for the good. So, with all that said, this is just the beginning. As many of you know who are following on things, I've got a lot of good ideas. The future of the state is very important to me, as it is to everyone in this room, and that's why you're here, and that's why you're watching. I'm amazed by the people who have agreed to speak here today. I am blown away by the people who said yes to be here today for us. So I'm very excited. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, and we're going to get this started. Our first speaker today is going to be Representative Jacob Rosecrants. Jacob represents House District 46 in Norman since 2017. Is the father of 2 kiddos who proudly attend Norman Public Schools, a former teacher. Representative Rosecrants aims to protect and strengthen our public schools at the Capitol. He authored and passed the Play to Learn Act in 2021, which empowers our early childhood educators to teach the way they know children learn best, through play. He is currently working on a bill to increase and protect the time for recess in all Oklahoma public schools. So important. Jacob aims to strengthen our public schools, rebuild the trust between parents and teachers, and he works hard to continue to be a true representative for all of his constituents. I know that to be true. I know we all look to Jacob to kind of be the voice for us progressives here in Oklahoma, and so I'm very pleased to introduce him.
Thank you so much, Amanda. First of all, let's hear it for Amanda one more time. To be honest with you, I didn't know your story, and wow, amazing. Plus, look what you were able to do. Just with, you can tell you have organizational skills. Yeah. So, I'm just proud to be asked even to come speak to you guys. After what happened on November 5th, I mean, I've just been really low. And I'm sure you guys have been really low as well. And I've been trying to find kind of what my reason, my why. How am I going to move forward? Because, you know, I'm a common sense dude. I know I'm progressive, but progressive, what does that even mean these days? It means common sense, right? It's like, we believe in science. Oh, progressive, you're liberal. You're liberal. No, it's just smart. And so as I go knocking doors and talking to folks in my district, which by the way, I'm a progressive Democrat in a 8% Republican district, so it can be done. Now, I have very highly educated people in my district. I have a lot of Republicans who vote for me because I've been doing this since 2017, and they trust me on certain issues. Really, the number one issue is education, which I think is so important because it does touch every single thing. I think one of the reasons why it's become under attack is because of that as well. You know, you'll hear, oh, the woke libs, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's called education. We are educating people to use their brains critically to think about the fact that, oh, this guy talking over here about eating animals, immigrants eating animals, that's fake. but people couldn't see the difference between that. Now, I don't know how much of it is Russian bots online. I think a lot of it is. I don't know how much of it is just people really truly believing the things that they are hearing and saying. Whatever it is, it's working on their side, okay? Now, talking over here how I was like going to try to be a little more positive about things, because things are very dark right now here in Oklahoma. We can't shy away from that. Even us here in the Democrat, our caucus, we aimed for a couple of seats. We got real close on a Trump election year, a red wave election year, but we didn't quite get there. And I'm talking about House District 100, just around kind of the metro areas here in House District 95. We got close. Edmond, that's going to be a close area too. You have to understand these areas are changing, but we have to have the mindset. We have to have the long-term vision, if you will. And that's kind of where it comes into. So I think people just think all the time, oh, running for office is the end-all, be-all. No, it's not. Actually, this is a very unromantic job. It's like, if anything goes wrong, people come to me in my whole district, and honestly, too, since I'm a former teacher, a lot of teachers from around the state come to me, too. That's why I know things are so low. With people like Ryan Walters out there, which, I mean, yeah, say boo. Boo on that guy. He sucks. He flat out sucks. And I even knew him. Listen, I know I get a little bit in trouble from some of my older constituents because I cyberbully him. They're like, dude. I felt the need. I sat there. So here, let me qualify this first, okay? I knew him before. He helped me pass my signature Play to Learn Act. Ryan Walters did. My caucus tells me never to tell this story because it humanizes him, but I want you to know I've already tried to reach out to that human to be like, bro, you won, shut the F up. And he's like, Rosecrants, he's really nice in person. He's like, hey, are you still working on the recess stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I am, but can you work for, the kids of Oklahoma instead of for your next job? And he's just like, and I'm like, that's the problem though, guys. You have this guy who obviously, and it's very Trumpy. Are there enough checks and balances to stop something like this? Obviously, effing not. And so that's where it comes from me. My job is not just to organize. We're going to talk about that a little bit here. And then, of course, Senator Mary Boren at the end, that's her expertise area. She's going to talk about how we can really start making a difference. But I want to talk about my job at the Capitol. First of all, I need more people. It's a math equation. There's only 20 Democrats out of 101. Here's the thing. Even when I talk to moderate Republicans, they're like, well, I would never vote for a Democrat. Well, then you're voting for the farthest right person because there is no middle ground right now. A moderate Republican does not exist here in Oklahoma. They'll tell you they do. Oh, I love Rosecrants. I love my public schools. I'll do whatever I can for my public. Oh, would you? Because you voted for a voucher, idiot. Let's be honest. For the longest time, I'm totally against private school vouchers. When I first became a teacher, I was not, yes, I went to OU, yes, I graduated with a history degree, but I was alternatively certified. So I got out there in my classroom, I didn't know what I was doing. Kid was flying off the roof, and I was like, is this normal? I was like, what are we even doing here? And all of that, by the way, middle school did prepare me for the Capitol, because I remember knocking on a few doors, people were like, hey, so yeah, you're a teacher, how's that prepared? I was like, dude, one day in my classroom, and you'll see that's what I'm basically dealing with. And that's what politics has become. And it's sad, but at the same time, it's a reality. So we need to kind of really touch into that new reality. I'm online all the time, right? It takes a lot out of me, it does, but then people know who I am, and then I can get my message of common sense and really progressive. Again, we're all progressives, right? But we're all just common sense. We all just want what's best for everybody else. Heck, I'm even Christian. I'm Catholic, born and raised. My dad was a Catholic priest, and my mom became a Catholic nun after they got divorced. I kid you not. I could probably write a book. But here's the crazy thing about that. They taught me, and my religion taught me to love all. To never ever question somebody's being. That's the stupidest thing I've seen from these Christians that I know. I've gone off on the Christian nationalists too. Talking to y'all Christian nationalists. Not good people. Not Christians. Not progressive. Not anything. And that's the problem, because if you're truly a Christian and you look at the message of Jesus, it's love everybody. Don't judge. That's somebody else's job. Yet here we are, every little thing. Oh, I tell you what, I got so scared when I saw Leah Thomas, the transgender swimmer, because I saw that the National Republicans were so very good at this. They take one little thing and then scare the living bejesus out of everybody else. And that's exactly what they did. I watched it happen in Virginia first, and I was like, oh crap, that worked. Why are they targeting transgender people? There's very few, and if anything, they're very marginalized even within the LGBTQ plus community. Why would we do that? Because it scares people. It's different, and they're really good at taking that and ripping it apart and making you scared as well. So how do you change that? Well, I think it really just comes down to this. Love everybody. You know, Amanda was talking about the fact that she's privileged. I'm white. I'm a white dude in Oklahoma. I'm privileged. I'm going to be needed by people that are already targeted. My vote already can do just so much. I mean, I voted against all the stupid crap. We were just thinking the other day, what can they do now? Because honestly, you know, as scared as we are that Donald Trump took over and Project 2025 is going to take over the United States, it's already here. It's been here for a long, long time, for over a decade. That's what happens when you have one-party rule. Even my common sense Republicans, they almost look towards us, Democrats, as more normal than the people that keep getting elected in their caucus. Well, they created that problem, y'all. They created that problem by straight party voting. If we don't get rid of straight party voting, that needs to be the next big thing that we get rid of here via the initiative petition. Because you have people that go in and they're just like, I'm going to vote red and go back to bed. I've seen it with my own eyes. And I'm like, dude, I'm like the guy running. You're really going to do that? He's like, well, who are you, Jacob? Well, I'm not going to vote for that guy. I was like, okay, yeah, but still, at least look through and find out what's what, who's who. And I think that might be where our salvation is going to come from. I'm not going to say, let's put all of our eggs in the moderate Republicans' basket, because they have no backbone. It hasn't shown up. Because if that's true, we wouldn't have passed half the crap we passed in this state. But, they're there. They're there, and I think that they can be reasoned with, and I don't know if it's going to get as dark as we think it is, because it's already really dark here in Oklahoma. It is. We have marginalized people to the level that, here's a really sad story that I just will never forget. I was asked to be the marshal, the grand marshal at our Norman Pride Parade one year. This was right after we passed a whole bunch of crap. And you know what I did instead of just celebrating? I cried. I cried because I couldn't do more. I had anxiety because I couldn't do more. And I know that's how each and every one of y'all feel as well in this state. So how do we fix it? We fix it by doing things like this. We fix it by empowering people like Amanda, who has these skills of organization. I've been in many of these things, and not many people show up. So give it up to yourself for that. And I don't care necessarily about size. I care about, if it's like 4 people here, we're going to have a good conversation, right? That's not what really matters. But in other people's eyes, it does. And it's just a very performative world that we're in right now, right? So let's perform like we know we can. Let's empower people like Amanda. Let's make sure we show up. Don't just necessarily think that you need to run for something to change something. That's another thing. I was not picked to run. They're not picking the poor teacher out in West Norman, which is the 3rd most affluent district in Norman. No, I'm sorry, the state, with a broke down PT Cruiser with no air conditioner to go be the next representative of West Side Norman. Nobody picked me to do it. It was my heart, but that was my way to serve. Do you see what I'm saying? I tell people all the time, I almost feel like this is something that was, I did choose this, it's been put upon me, and I want to be there for everybody, but not everybody has to be me. I want you to go and do whatever you think you can do to help. But number 1 is to still care. You have to care. It's when you don't care when things change to where we can't get them back. Okay? We're already in Oklahoma. We're already in those dark times. But here's where I told you I was going to get positive. Ready for the positivity? It won't always be this way. It is unsustainable to scare the living shit out of people. It is. It's unsustainable, especially if they have critical thinking skills. Because you can be like, well, no, that's not true. Well, no, that's true. You're going to feel like your voice is going to be lost in the wind. It's not. People are more normal than you think. So if you can think of this, I know we always talk about, okay, well, what we need you is to help us candidates win. Okay, that's good. Yes, that's part of it. But what we need you to do is to care and show up however you think you can show up. That's it. Now, I know you're going to talk to some people, like if we had anybody from like any kind of candidates, groups, whatever, they're going to ask you to knock doors. Well, yes, if you can do that, it's great. If you're good at that, put yourself to work there because your voice matters, especially to independents. We haven't talked enough about independents. There's a reason why they're growing so much. There's a ton of Republicans that are like, F this, that sucks. And there's a ton of Democrats that don't think that we go far enough. Well, those independents need us to talk to them. I mean, when I'm knocking doors out in my Republican district, I don't win without my independent voters. I don't. So there you go. And I bet a lot of y'all are independent too for some of the reasons why I've said, right? Democrat Party can't do enough. We're in Oklahoma. It's tough. It's always going to be a battle. Guys, if you're burned out, unfortunately, that's the way it's going to be here in Oklahoma. That's just the way it's going to be. We're in the only state where every county voted for freaking Trump. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Like, seriously, that's another thing, too. Like, in 2016, maybe I could see somebody saying that Trump could be a decent, because he's an outsider, and people are tired of the system, and I'm going to get into that in just a second, too. But now, with the way that he talks, talking about his transgender surgeries in public school, that's disqualifying for a person running for office, yet still, nobody pushed back against it. And I think I figured out why, too. I think that it's the system. I think the system is broken. I think we empower people with money way too much, and that goes on both parties, y'all. It really does. Like a lot of times, again, I wasn't picked, right? Well, who would normally be picked to run out in Westside Norman? Somebody who could raise a lot of money, probably a lawyer, but would they do the hard work? Do you see what I'm saying? So, what I want you guys to realize as we move forward, and I'll end this. I know I'm talking. I don't have to go on and on and on. I'm a former teacher. I go all day if I have to. Just stay present. Keep caring. Your voice does matter. It does, even if you don't believe that it does. And we can start picking away at the margins to try to help us at the Capitol to have more of a wall to stop the BS that's obviously coming. I don't even know what it's going to be this year. Massive tax cuts, that's going to be number one. That's not going to help anything at all. But I wonder about maybe the culture war type stuff. They've done it all. They have passed everything into law, especially with Governor Stitt, who happily signs these anti-transgender bills and says things like, oh, you can't have women in sports and all this stuff, men's sports, just stupidity. But I'm telling you right now, I believe that we're to the point now where if you continue to show up, to organize, to show up and help people, who do run, however that is, then maybe we can start changing things back the other way. But number one, you got to care. I know I said it 3 times. You got to care because I know it's tough. I know it's tough. There's times where I just want to go on my shell. I wanted to go watch football today. Luckily, the Broncos are on a bye, so I was like, I'm down with this. But no, guys, thank you so much once again for coming out. Realize that it's already dark here and that we are the light. We are the light. That's the way it is. Progressives, people with common sense and that can critically think, are the light that everybody's going to look to as soon as everything tears down. And guys, this is not sustainable. What they're doing is not sustainable. What the United States is doing is not sustainable. What they chose in November 5th is not sustainable. We are sustainable because we can think and we can love. And love should win out. I'm very, 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 very embarrassed that somebody as awesome as Kamala Harris wasn't accepted. Something, I don't know what it was. I just thought, honestly, I must be in an echo chamber because I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is exactly what I wanted because I was a little worried with Biden on the ballot when I was knocking doors out there because I felt like Eeyore, with the rain cloud. I was like, yeah, I don't know who's going to win. But then when that flipped, I had all this energy and I was like, yes, common sense, we're going all the way. And then Trump won. I mean, I know we have a lot of work to do, guys, but I'm telling you, we're here to do it. Thank you, Amanda, once again. Thank you all. I can also answer questions if you want to. Okay. So I'm supposed to do a little Q&A, so if you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll just answer it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. This question has upset many Democrats that are, higher up than me. What is wrong with the idea of registering as a Republican and primarying these motherfuckers?
That's a good question. Let me repeat the question. I actually was going to talk about that today as one of my strategies. I'm all over the board. I'm not the guy that's going to have that thought. The point was, why don't we just all just register as Republicans and just tear shit down? Be my guest. Sorry, Democrats. No, seriously, think about it though. That's kind of what happened with the Republicans. This is a Democrat state. But all those Democrats out in the rural area, they switched. Like seriously, the reason why battlegrounds are the suburban areas, those are traditionally Republican areas. Republicans weren't always MAGA. They just weren't always that way. And so, yeah, if you think that's going to help, be my guest. It matters how you vote in the end, right? Now you're probably going to freak people out if it's a ton of people and all of a sudden you see like Republicans like zoom up, but that's how it had to happen. Talk to anybody back in the day, they're like, my dad was a Democrat because he couldn't get anything done. So I switched to Democrat even though they're Republican. So yeah, sure, if that's a strategy you want to follow, go for it. Yeah. Anybody else, please? Yes.
How do you handle your family, friends, neighbors and maybe the answer is the same, that you just gave, but that say they don't believe in voting for Trump or voting for this kind of ideology, but they also can't vote for a Democrat? I heard that a lot.
I have heard that a lot too.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say I had quite a few Trump voters vote for me as well because of my love for public schools, which there's a whole other study we need to get into. I was like, but bro, he don't like public schools. At the same time, I need your vote, so okay. Gosh, I mean, I think maybe the best thing, and this is kind of what I do with my social media too, just don't judge. I mean, because these people did vote for Trump for a reason. Some are true MAGA that you're just never going to be able to reach. But some people really, and this was eye-opening too when I knocked doors in some of, I'm a renter in my district. I'm poor. It's a poor teacher. I have 4 dogs and 2 kids and a girlfriend and like a very small house. But I struggle with people like me when I go talk to them because they're so frustrated that they just don't want anybody anymore. They don't care about Democrats, Republicans. They just want a better life. And so at that point, I'm just like, well, think about it this way. Right now, you have Republicans who want to do tax breaks or tax cuts and all this stuff and really empower rich people. Would that help you out? I'm like, absolutely not. And I was like, well, then vote Democrat, bro. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. And so have a listening ear. Try to find out why they voted for this is extremism. This is not normal. MAGA is not normal. It's extreme. Try to find out why they felt the need to go that route. And then listen, like if it's the fear, it's the immigrants taking their jobs, that's fear-mongering, okay? That's fear-mongering. Then you break that down and be like, well, that's simply not happening. And then maybe you'll have a conversation. I found that that's the easiest way to do it. Try not to close doors that are already open, but I'll just realize also some are going to be closed. So, anybody else?
When I asked you, there is a little test that you can take, and I'll have to find the link, that you answer a series of questions, and at the end of it, it tells you where you fall on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I was raised indoctrinated to believe, truly, I was told, you vote Democrat, you are of the devil. I remember that being told to me as a kid. I remember growing up that way, and I truly believe there's a lot of people that still believe that way. That you can't love God, you can't be a good Christian, you're up, and it's, God, it just sickens me. But anyway, back to the story. You can do this testing, you can ask them to do it, and it will literally guide them. I was voting Republican, and I was totally Bernie Sanders. This was several years ago. I know they still do the test because I've handed it to people, and it's been kind of updated with things to say, okay, find out where you lie on
It's called I Side With.
I side with, yeah, see, I love that. You can pop that on them, because we all have cell phones, right? So you just drop the old app on them and be like, hey, are we really a Republican?
When my daughter turned 18, I made her take the test, because whatever, I am who I am, she is who she is.
Right.
She needs to vote upon what she believes. And she took the test, and obviously she was Bernie Sanders. So, and so she now utilizes that when she will talk to people. Just take this test, it'll tell you where you're at.
That's actually a really neat idea, because maybe it could be a wake-up call, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, dang, huh. Well, and here's kind of the crazy thing, too. I've had Trumpers that have voted for Bernie in the past as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's the whole idea that people are just really tired of the system itself. Yes.
So is there a list or a network, because people that I talk to that voted for Trump get their information primarily from one of three places, right? So when you say, hey, go here, they go, I'd never trust that. Do we have a working list of places you can go and just hammering them with that? To say, until you've listened to both sides, you haven't listened to any side.
That is a great point. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have. On the other side, they have full news networks dedicated to just pushing BS.
It's not networks, it's podcasts. It's,
Oh, and those too.
It's everything. So
Well, and that's something I think we messed up on nationally by not seeing the fact that podcasting is kind of this outside the box idea is kind of catching on. Heck, we're in 2024, so it makes a little bit of sense. And I think everybody should just go on whatever show. It doesn't really matter really when it comes down to it. But now, great point. I don't know of anything. And that's one of the problems too, is that there's just so much out there, right? But like, is there something that you can just direct them to and be like, well, hey, just use what God gave you up here, right? That's so simple. Yes.
So, sorry, I
No,
was
you're
a
good.
media major, and there is a media bias chart that is released every year that analyzes all major media outlets, and it puts it on, and it's completely unbiased, and it shows, because you'd be shocked how many people don't understand that Fox News, the conservative news choice, is the conservative news choice. It is literally marketed to those people, and they don't understand that it's not unbiased, it's 100% biased. And by having that chart from an unbiased source, you can say, now obviously you can't argue with stupid. So some people are just not going to listen regardless, but if you have that resource that you can literally just Google and pull up and be like, I literally post it on my Facebook every year, just as a reminder, people, there is such a thing as biased media. And so...
Well, it goes both ways too. That's another thing that we need to realize. I didn't think that. I honestly, whenever I was in my formative years, I heard about Fox. But I didn't hear, I just thought that CNN and everything else was just, common sense. And it is, but it does lean a little bit, liberal. And so you're going to lose people when you say go check CNN out or go check MSNBC or something like that.
We got
Good
time for
point.
one more question.
One more question. I got a big old hand up here. I see it from back there.
I was just gonna say, I don't think it really matters about any of that because there's been so much propaganda from everywhere that most of these people are not gonna be swayed. Obviously, they're not swayed by facts. They're never gonna be swayed by unbiased media because they don't believe there is that. So most of the time, you're not gonna be able to sway these people. You're just not. We're past that. Like, that's how propaganda works. And there's a reason that they target the segments of the population that they target. Because easily they follow propaganda. Like, that's just how it is. So, like, it's time for us to give up on that, I think, and just start protecting the people that we need to protect.
Well, and that's a good point. And the fact that you're talking about protecting people we need to protect, absolutely. That's why I kind of want to come full circle and kind of end this with the fact that, again, we're privileged. We're the ones here, at least I am, right? If you're a white person in Oklahoma, you're privileged. So help out those that you know are going to need your help. My God, I've taught in Southside Oklahoma City. Do you know how many former students of mine are freaked out right now? And they have every right to be, especially with some of the state level laws that we passed. But now you have people said, okay, we're going to vote for Trump and he's going to do all these sweeping reforms. Well, they're going to go to the red states first because they have everything kind of set up. So those people are going to need your help as much as humanly possible. So thank you for really bringing that up, the idea of protecting. And I don't want to be like the white savior, because that's what it sounds like. But we're privileged. We're privileged, and we need to be there and help out wherever we can, for sure. So again, thank you all so very much for just really listening to me kind of ramble on about stuff. But I'm telling you right now, as long as we stay united, we don't infight. Let them infight. My goodness, the infighting is going to be insane right now between rhinos and MAGA. Let that happen. kick it in the rear and throw it into gear. And then we stay united and we push back and we present something that we have to have after all of this breaks down, which is actual human beings that care and that have critical thinking skills. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Representative. So I'm going to keep this moving because we've got a lot of people to get through. So next, it is my honor to introduce Sara Cunningham. She is an author, a founder of the nonprofit organization Free Mom Hugs. I'm not sure there's anyone in this room that doesn't know who she is, but I'm going to continue. Her journey is a surprising one that began in conservative Oklahoma when her son Parker came out as gay. As a woman of faith, Sara wrestled with the news until she began to study, research, and reconcile the two worlds, which resulted in her book, How We Sleep at Night. Free Mom Hugs is a movement across the country and the world. Sara goes beyond the hug to educate and advocate organizations of all types, including schools and businesses, striving for safe and protected spaces. She has appeared many times with her son Parker on the Today Show, the Riepl Show. She spoke at the GLAAD Awards. She's been featured in numerous publications. And I believe that Jamie Lee Curtis has bought the rights to Sara's book, which is exciting. So let me, without further ado, introduce Sara Cunningham.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. Amanda, thank you for putting this together. I woke up this morning looking for hope, and oh my goodness, here you are. Look at you. What a beautiful bunch. If you don't know, the synopsis is this. My name is Sara Cunningham. I'm here today, not necessarily as a founder of a nonprofit, because you can only do so much politically as a nonprofit. So I'm here speaking to you today on behalf of being a woman, on behalf of being a woman of faith, a mother with a gay kid, and an Oklahoman born and raised. A little bit about my story. I'm the least politically minded person you'll probably ever meet. As an Oklahoman, I was born and raised much like my friend here, that we didn't question authority. It was wrong to talk about sex or money. And that left me pretty much in a bubble, a conservative bubble, and pretty much ignorant as far as critical thinking you spoke of. I was in my 40s before I understood the significance of a little gay bar in New York City called the Stonewall Inn. I know, it's a shame. I was in my 40s before I understood the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. I was in my 40s before I entered a PFLAG group that I thought was for high schoolers and parents like me, and it turned out to be a support group for the adult transgender community. I had never been in a room with a transgender person that I know of until that day. I stayed because I was curious. I brought the cookies. And I listened to their stories, and they weren't all sad, but most of them were, and I cried hot tears in my car after that meeting because I thought, these are beautiful, misunderstood people. And the more I met the community and seeing my son happy and healthy once he was able to live authentically, it helped me to better understand my son, and I met this beautiful spirit-filled community, and I fell in love. But I also heard their stories about how they had been alienated from their homes, from their church families, and from many parts of society. Last year, Oklahoma had more anti-LGBTQ plus bills than anywhere else in the country. I said last year, that was this year, so it was the same year. I was accountable to what I was learning. So in 2015, I made a homemade button. And with anyone who made eye contact with me, I would say, can I give you a free mom hug or a high five? Which is it? High five. That's okay, I can hug you. Girl, stand up here. Give a hug, Mary. And the first hug went to a beautiful young girl who said it's been 4 years since she had a hug from her mother because she's a lesbian. I was accountable to what I was learning about the community, and that started the nonprofit Free Mom Hugs, and now we're a national movement. Listen, I'm not the first mom to offer hugs at a Pride festival. I just reacted, and I was accountable to what I was learning. Now, I took notes, but really, with the Free Mom Hugs movement, we were talking about how do we bridge this gap between them and us and all the division that's such a great divide. I used to think that I would bridge the gap between the non-affirming church and the gay community that I was meeting, but I couldn't get anyone from the non-affirming side to meet at the table with my new LGBTQ plus family and friends. So we were at the baseball field in Oklahoma City. It was called Gay Days at the baseball field. And, you know, they're playing Queen under the speakers, and there's young people there with their pride flags. It's a beautiful night. I'm pretty sure we were winning. And we were there, Free Mom Hugs, with our banner, and we were passing out hugs. It was a beautiful night, but not everybody got the memo that it was Gay Days at the baseball field. I knew that because as we were standing there giving out hugs and high fives, there was a group of people off to the side. I call them scoffers. And there was a time that I would have walked over and tried to have a dialogue with them, because that's who I am. We try to reason together. And at that moment, I felt like I heard a still small voice say, "Sara, you're not here for them." So I want to encourage you, precious people, when we can pour into, and I learned this through the mission of Free Mom Hugs, when we stopped trying to bridge that gap, though it's important, if you're a bridge builder, do that. But for me and the mission of Free Mom Hugs, once we determined to pour into the community and their families, that's where we saw fruit. That's where we saw the mission blossom, empowering families to have authentic relationships with their children, and that's when we saw the fruit of Free Mom Hugs. So I want to encourage you. When Free Mom Hugs, I started officiating weddings for the same-sex couples, and if you told me I would have been doing that, listen, that's something I had to search out too, but I honor same-sex marriage. I consider it just as sacred, as holy as my own. But I started hearing stories about how they had been alienated by their families, or moms refusing to come to the wedding, or not acknowledging the relationship. Tell me time when I'm running out. And so, out of frustration, I made a social media post, said if your biological mom will come to your same-sex wedding, then you call me, I'll be there, I'll even bring in the bubbles. That post went viral. I didn't even know what going viral meant. I'm still not sure. That post went viral, and you know, we were receiving emails, probably 50 to 100 an hour. And people, I want to encourage you, because people want to do something. I'll stand in too. I'll be a grandma. I'm a grandma now. I'll stand in too. And that shows you that people want to do something. We just need a platform to do it. And Free Mom Hugs, I believe, gave a platform for people to do something. So I want to encourage you. You're here today because you care. You're here today because you're frustrated. And you're here today because you want to do something. So look around at your neighbor today and be encouraged that we're not alone. There's more of us than there is of them. Now, speaking as a woman of faith, just quickly here, I'm not a Bible scholar or a theologian, but I do remember a Bible study about a study in Ezekiel talking about how, there's a group of people that will suddenly have hooks in their mouth. They just have hooks in their mouths. And sometimes I think, is it them or is it us? Who's got the hooks? But you know the difference is that fruit. It's the fruit that we're talking about, the empowering, the life-giving fruit of the Spirit, because God is love, and the fruit of the Spirit is love. And the second thing is, I had to write this down, with recent news, you know what's going on with the man that was shot the reaction, and I heard this on TikTok, it resonated so well, I hope that I can repeat it, and I'm sorry, I don't know who said it, but don't quote me on this because it's not mine. They were talking about, it's not about the man that was shot. It's about public reaction to social accountability. It's about a public reaction to social accountability. And think about that for a minute. What's happening now in the world with the United Healthcare situation, with the Blue Cross Blue Shield anesthesia situation, is a public reaction to social accountability. Do you hear me? Let that sink in for a minute. And that's playing out right here, right now. And guess what, folks? We're in a revolution. Welcome to the revolution. Last thing, I'll shut up. Powerful. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope. That's what you did today. And then, that's for Maya Angelou, you do her. And then lastly, John Lewis, nothing, listen, nothing can stop the power of a committed and dedicated people to make a difference in society. Why? Because human beings are the most dynamic link to the divine on the planet. That's you and me. And there's nothing more powerful than a committed, determined people. God bless you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to keep moving along. Next up are going to be two, I'm just going to say it, badasses with the Defense of Democracy. Defense of Democracy, you're getting ready to. This group are firecrackers, and I'm putting it lightly. It's Bailey Tyler and Erica Watkins are both going to come and speak to us today about Defense of Democracy. Bailey is the state co-chair for the Oklahoma chapter of this grassroots organization, and Erica works with the veterans part of Defense of Democracy. And so I'm going to call them both up here and let them kind of tell you about what they have going on and how you can get involved, because I think they need boots on the ground.
Hello, this is different than my TikTok screen. I'm talking to people on TikTok, so it's kind of different. I'm Bailey Tyler, and this is Erica Watkins. We're both state co-chairs for Defense of Democracy Oklahoma, which, again, is a grassroots organization. We are completely funded, despite what Ryan Walters says, we are completely funded by the generous donations of individuals. We don't have George Soros money. I wish somebody would send me a paycheck, but it's not happening. And basically, to sum us up, I'll go into a little more detail on what we are. We are the woke boogeyman that Ryan Walters rants in his car about.
Yeah, so basically, Defense of Democracy actually started in New York. We are a national organization, and it started because it was a mom from a blended family, our great founder, Karen. She was driving her kids to school and saw a school board election campaign sign that said, "Vote so-and-so for school board, Christ is King." And she was like, no. No, and this is in New York. So even though obviously we are seeing, a lot of the blueprint for Project 2025 and this Christian nationalist agenda happening here in Oklahoma, and we've been in, it's everywhere. So that's kind of what we do, is try to work with other people that, they might think that they're safe, but they are, groups like Moms for Liberty, and these people are infiltrating school boards, and they have been for a while, so that when people like Walters come in. But yeah, so she just, made a post about it in a community group. Lots of other parents were concerned, and then she started getting contacts from people all around the nation that were like, we just got this crazy school board member that's trying to ban all these books. And so Defense of Democracy started. So we did start Oklahoma, when did we start it? A couple years ago. It's been a couple years now. And mainly in response to Ryan Walter's attack on Tulsa Public Schools was when we really saw our growth. He held this just performative press conference that he went, to talk about religious persecution against a board member that said a Christian prayer. So we went with megaphones and played sirens the whole time she was praying, because that's our style. Because not every group can operate like that, but we can, and that's why we do what we do, and we love to have people involved if you're like that. We're petty, and we get your passions, but like we're gonna be like a pain in your ass. Like that's what we're here for. So we did that, and then Bailey got her hat marked off, and then this like 80-year-old lady spit on another one of us, and it was like this whole thing, and so we got some national media attention, and then that's what we do, yeah. So I'm gonna switch off because I'll ramble too much.
And if you want to know the verdict of that, the DA did not press charges. We had it on video that we were assaulted, and we even told this old lady we were veterans. Like this was someone's grandmother that hit me and then spit on another person. It was my first protest, so I was mortified that this was happening to me. But I still go to protest. It's the best thing ever. Yeah. So, I want to start next with why I joined Defense of Democracy, and I feel like this is going to resonate with a lot of the women in here, or female presenting people. I am a new mother. I have a 2-year-old, but when I was a new mother, when I had just given birth, Roe v. Wade was overturned. And if you remember the feeling, that gut punch of that happening, it lit a fire inside of me, and I didn't know it yet. I used to be a conservative Christian. Around 2020, I started deconstructing my religion and my politics. I was also getting an education at the time, so there was a lot of working parts that were happening. And I was on TikTok, and Erica had posted a video about Moms for Liberty. I had no clue who these people were, but I started looking into this because she made this video and about this group that she's starting to fight back against what they were doing. And so I joined, and then a month later, she said, "Do you want to lead the chapter, the whole state?" I'm like, sure. So here we are 2 years later, and we have over 1,000 members in our group, and that is why
Yeah, also TikTok. So weird. And I don't know, I think I went through a moment where Moms for Liberty was being really, really active. And then I see that same, like this, this is my oldest, and my kids are just now on their public school journey. And education is super important to me. I mean, it's important to a whole, society. Like, it is one of our most important institutions. And that's why this coordinated attack on public education has been happening really since desegregation, because it's rooted in white supremacy, period, full stop. That they want to prioritize it because they didn't like that there were equitable education options out there for people of color and other marginalized groups. So let's not, we know why Walters is doing what he's doing, period. And we call him on it. And so that's what I was doing. I got reached out to by Karen and some of the other national leaders that were like, hey, if you've got this going on Oklahoma, start. So yeah, that's how I got started. And then we learned about veterans. So I am the vice commander of Veterans Defending Democracy. And what we do, if there are any, are there any veterans in the room? Yes, yes. Okay. So what we do with Veterans Defending Democracy is it's just like a little affiliate group of Defense of Democracy. And there are a lot of people, I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that are nervous to go speak at a school board meeting or to go down to the State Board of Education meeting or to go do certain things because these people are preying on fear and intimidation. And especially in places like Oklahoma, I've had people come up to me on the state capitol grounds and tell me that I'm not going to be safe on the streets, that they'll be coming for me and make threats to my face. I'm the type of person that's not going to intimidate me just because of my life experiences. But a lot of people, understandably, don't want to put themselves in situations where they could be harmed or feel like there are these groups that are coming that are trying to intimidate them out of speaking in school board. So the veterans come up and we'll stand with parents or educators while you're speaking. We'll walk you to your car. We have, you know, a lot of, I guess, the men. I always joke that my husband is like a conservative camouflage, like Loki was saying at January 6th, but like, you know, but he'll come. Stop, no. So, but it's there because they a lot of them, they'll these people, these Christian nationalists, these extremists that show up that are the loudest voices, they will target women and people that they know that they think that they can intimidate. And so what the Veterans Branch of Defense of Democracy does is we're there to not let them. Because our oath never expires. Like the oath that we swore to this country is for freedom and equality for every single person, regardless of any of these things that they try. And the Oklahoma values and the patriotism that people like Ryan Walters try to spread, we know that that's not, and that's what, you know, we want to really make sure that we're spreading that, is that patriotism is respecting the diversity that makes this nation great. It's respecting the every single experience, their cultural experience, whatever it is. That is true patriotism, not this whitewash Christian nationalist bullshit. So, yeah.
I wanted to talk about going to the State Board of Education meetings and how it's evolved. So when we started this, we couldn't really get people to go to local school board meetings. Go to your local school board meetings. Go. But we started going to Oklahoma City, to the Capitol, and there was like an unlimited amount of people who could sign up to speak. You got 3 or 4 minutes. Everybody was getting in. We were handing it to Ryan, and he could not handle it. And now it has evolved to where there's a lottery system. And, I mean, we were camping out overnight to make sure we got a spot. We had people there at 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning waiting to speak. And now it's a lottery system. And he is actively suppressing the voices of parents and taxpayers. I mean, he works for us, and he doesn't want to hear us. And so you mentioned cyberbullying him. So that's kind of what we do too. I mean, what else can you do? He doesn't want to listen to us in person, so we'll just make fun of you on the internet and everybody else can see it. So, but it has changed, and it got a little dangerous the last time. It was a little different the last time that we went to the State Board of Education meeting. Someone did a witch incantation on them, and they didn't like it, and they had it coming, but you know, but the vibe was different, and we just don't really feel safe at this moment. These people are getting bussed in, and by people I mean Bob Lynn's OCPAC group. Nothing against older people, but these are 60, 70, 80-year-old people who tithe to this man, give him all their money, and do whatever he says. And he buses them into the State Board of Education meetings, and they get up there and they pat Ryan on the back and talk about Trump. I don't really know why they're talking about Trump at a state school board meeting, but they do. And so we're hoping that by waiting a couple of months, they'll stop going. And so we really want to pick up in the next year going back. We're going to still probably have the lottery system, but if you're in the Oklahoma City area, or even if you're in the Tulsa area, we can carpool. Be looking for that. If you can, the board's.
It's right there. Yeah, she turned it.
Sorry, the light, I cannot see it at all, sorry. Our information's on there. You can follow us on TikTok if you're on TikTok, and then find our Facebook group. We do not give any of our communications on Facebook. We will put out like calls to action occasionally, but we are in a whole different platform where it's secure and safe. And so if you get onto Facebook, you'll find us. You'll find your way from there. But we need people to go to local school board meetings. We need to go back to the State Board of Education meetings to make our presence known, because one of the things that Ryan Walters says is that we are the out-of-state woke mob. I don't know about you, but I live in Oklahoma. So And I also, while I'm thinking about it, I wanted to point out my shirts. Okay, the left wing,
Left wing fever
yeah,
dreamer.
left wing fever dreamer. Sorry. That is a Ryan Walter. Actually, no, Dan Isaac.
Yes.
It's Dan Isaac, his communications guy. That's what it is. His quote.
Ooh, that's bad.
We were, I don't remember what specifically it was,
It was for
but.
the Open Meetings Act.
Oh, the Open Meetings
That's
Act.
right.
We called him out because we said, take your meeting somewhere where everybody can show up, where everybody can come speak. And he wouldn't do it. And so he said it was a left-wing fever dream. And I think he meant wet dream, but I'm not leaving it to Ryan Walters to make any kind of logic. So. But if you want one of these shirts, I do believe it's still on our website. You can go to defensivedemocracy.org/shop. So go check that out.
Amanda, can I add something
Yes,
to that?
of course. Go right ahead.
First of all, I love these ladies. What they're saying is absolutely true. The school board, so think about what Trump's been saying, right? He wants to get rid of the Department of Education. Well, I truly don't think he can do that, but what they are going to try to do is put education back in the hands of the state, back in the hands of us, back in the hands of us, back in the hands of you. So you do need to show up to your local school board meetings. You do need to show up. We need numbers at the State Board of Education. Numbers, because that's all that they can see. That really does help. It really does. If it's just a few, it just doesn't work all that well. Although I give it up to you guys for always continually doing it. You have to. Because I want people to join them though. I'll go too. You have to realize that we're going to have more of a say on things. Plus, what Walters is trying to do right now is through the system. He's trying to change the social studies standards to include the Bible. It's happening. I'm watching it right now as a former social studies teacher. That has to go through the State Board of Education, right? Also, I'm going to try to pass a law, I didn't really talk about it before, to change the school board, because that's one of the biggest problems. That's supposed to be a check against this man, right? It is a problem. It is definitely, he's got it. And so they do everything they can for him. So everything you do is so super important now, and more effective, I think, too, as well. So thank you so much.
Y'all good. Probably start, wrap it up and then questions and answers.
Okay. I do want to say, like, how we can get involved by going to local school board meetings. And I want to give you an example. So we went to the Union School Board meeting in Tulsa, and the reason why we went was because we have someone in the Moms for Liberty Facebook group. I'm not gonna say who, but they were posting on it. They wanted to go get a book ban. And so we activated, we put out a message and said, hey, we need people to go to the Union School Board meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't get a whole bunch of people, but we showed up. We had about 5 or 6 people. But unfortunately, like, we're not in that district. We're not parents in that district, so we felt a little weird about it. But, nonetheless, we're going to show up and fight for the school district. And these people, Moms for Liberty, the book that they were trying to ban because it was explicit, sexually explicit, they read it out loud in front of the minors they were wanting to ban. And even made like some moaning sounds. I'm not gonna, it was very, it was gross. But we were there and we got to go speak and kind of take the fire, take the wind out of them, because they weren't expecting anyone to come up and contest it. And then we get up there and we tell the school board, you do what you need to do. Don't listen to these people. They're just trying to keep you from doing your job. Don't worry about them. You're doing a great job. We love you, blah, blah, blah. Just being there to show support. And you don't have to speak every time you go to a local school board meeting if it's supposed to be boring, right? School board meetings are not supposed to be exciting. So if you go and you're like, this is the most boring thing I've ever done in my life, good. That is a good thing. But we just need people to be there and be a presence and let them know that people are watching.
Yeah, exactly. Finding what they're doing and kind of anticipating and showing that resistance preemptively really does help. Because they need to know that they're not in the majority, that it's reasonable parents. So yeah, get involved. Our social medias, you can also email info@defensivedemocracy.org
for any
Do
questions.
we have any questions, real quick, just one or two? Go ahead.
Is there a mechanism in place if a book does get banned to have it reinstated?
So I believe most local school districts do have an appeal process. And a lot of them, I think it's like parent-led, like they have, or people from the community anyways, that read the book and give their verdict to the school district. So there are some checks and balances in there. And the issue with the specific scenario we're talking about, where they messed up, was they didn't even formally report the book. They just showed up and read the explicit part of the book and said, hey, ban this. Like, why do you have this on the bookshelf? There's a process that people have to follow, and a lot of people don't know that process exists, especially Moms for Liberty. They're constantly not following the rules, and so that's another thing where we can show up and be like, hey, you're not following the rules. You need to, if you want this book banned, you need to go write on this piece of paper what the book is, prove that you read it, give the context, right, and then submit it to the school board, and then it gets reviewed. So yes, there is a process in place to kind of give checks and balances.
So, Jana Stanforth, and I'll call her out by name because I cannot stand her, is the chair of a Moms for Liberty group. And she goes to school districts, and she's probably done it if you have kids in public schools. And she goes to their online media catalog and Googles woke and activist and anti-racism, feminism, stuff like that, and screenshots those books and then pushes it out to her members. So yeah, we want to be proactive. Is there any other questions? Sorry.
I just wanted to say that one of the things I love about your organization is that you're bipartisan, that you're nonpartisan.
Yeah.
And I think that, I just wanted to highlight that because this woman was talking about, how to get people involved that don't want to be, involved with Democrats, but they're disagreeing with what's happening. And I think that's a really, really important part of the organization that makes you so strong. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of resources on the website that can help you to educate people about Project 2025 and stuff. I just want to highlight that.
Yeah, and I want to expand on that just a little bit. So we are sometimes, so it gets a little bit, sometimes there are progressive people that get put off by it because they're like, I don't know if I want to be involved with anybody that is conservative or Republican right now but a very, very core tenet of defense of democracy is that you must be actively anti-racist. Yes. And you must support and uphold the rights and fight for the rights of marginalized community, including Two-Spirit, LGBTQIA, all of that. So that part, we don't let, we do have conservatives, but they understand basic human rights and dignity. But it is a little bit appealing to some people because we literally only focus on education and school things. So there are, obviously we all have our own ideologies and have there's so many things, so many fires. And that's part of the strategy of these fascists is to have so much stuff going on that it burns you out and it keeps you tired and it keeps organizers fatigued. So being able to just kind of hyper-focus on one while also building coalition with groups that are focused on, LGBT rights or unhoused rights and all of that. And so that's what I think is really cool, the coalition and stuff. So we would love to have you get involved.
Thanks, everybody. If you're on TikTok right now, follow us @DFD_OK.
We're going to keep moving right along. So next I have Senator Mary Boren, who was first elected to the Oklahoma State Senate in November of 2018 and was reelected in 2022. She represents the people living in District 16, which covers the University of Oklahoma and Norman and Cleveland County. She now practices probate and estate law in a firm in Edmond, Oklahoma.
Skip all that.
And I'm going to hand her the microphone so she can get to the good stuff.
She asked for that bio and it's just off the website, which is annoying because it's very long and I hate having to listen to it. So I appreciate you cutting back through that. I represent the people of Norman, Oklahoma. The football stadium is in the center of my district and 80,000 people around it. So mainly I represent professors, bachelor's degree students, people who wanted to live in Norman because of the university or have some affiliation with the university.
So peer-reviewed research and data and evidence is core to our culture in Norman, which makes it so that we're pretty much always in a different disposition for almost everything that happens at the Capitol. So I am marginalized because of the context by which I show up and represent. So asking questions, asking for evidence, asking for data, asking for all of those things that people make a lot of money in Norman doing, that when they fill out a grant, they, for millions of dollars to solve really big problems in the world, they don't get to say, don't worry your pretty little head about it, we'll get to that later, you know, and I know a guy, so you should sign it. That's not the way they work every day, so that's why they don't want the Capitol to work that way. So that's the context in which I represent the people of Norman. I want to get into some of the questions that I've heard you all ask already. And one of it, there's a big debate. Do we build bridges, what's called persuasion campaign, which is you try to convince a Republican to vote for a Democrat? Or do you go out and get people that aren't voting and register them to vote, or get them to the polling station? So if you're going to be in that persuasion camp, I think we've had several election cycles where that has failed miserably, and we're not getting any traction. We're not getting any traction in that at all. And unfortunately, in the political consulting world, we don't have the infrastructure political consulting-wise to abandon that. Because they make the same amount of money regarding, this is really controversial for me to be saying this, but it's how I break down on this issue. And because Jacob and I, our campaigns have always been about registering new voters, getting non-active voters to the polling place. And that's what Bernie did, and that's what Obama did. So I think that in a very, very hard red state like Oklahoma, with only 50% of our people registered to vote, then the territory that we can gain is getting those that aren't voting, that aren't registered to vote, get them to vote. And there's a number out there. You can ask how many new registered voters do we need to have in Oklahoma to get a governor? And there's a number out there. It's like 180,000 new voters. Now, in 4 million people, let's say 3 million of them are able to vote, that's not a big number. And if you break it down by a third goes to Tulsa County, a third goes to Oklahoma County, the rest is spread out over the rest of Oklahoma, then that's your formula. But we don't have the infrastructure or the commitment to finance that. But that's where you all can come in. Right now, we are 23 months away from electing a better governor.
Woo!
And, it's not even 23 months, it's like 22 and a half months. So, but one thing that all of y'all can be doing right now is put together your strategy for registering progressive people to vote. Yeah. And you can Google that. Like, y'all are smart enough, y'all are dedicated enough, or you wouldn't be in this room right now. I don't have to. You can Google. There's all kinds of models out there of how to find progressive people and register them to vote. There's some really cool stuff that they did down in Texas, and Beto's doing amazing stuff on that. So that's something that a introvert can do, an extrovert can do. You can do it totally through digital means. You can do it face-to-face. But there are ways to identify and encourage people who are progressive leaning to register to vote. And if you break it down, if you just set a goal for 15% new voters in your precinct and in your county, and then in your congressional district, and then in your and then at the state, that's how you do it. So there's a number. You can go and look right now and figure out how many registered voters registered and how many voters voted in this last election. You can pull that by your precinct. If you need help with that, call the state party. They can help you with that. Call me. And that's the next thing I want to give you. Here's my cell phone number. 405. I'm serious. Y'all write it down.
You're on TikTok, Mary.
Oh, okay.
Later.
I'll go like this. Tell you what, once you email me, you can okay, it's Mary.
On TikTok.
Boren at oksenate.gov. And all I need you to say is that you were here and you'd like to follow up on how you could register voters, and then I'll connect with you. But and I know Jake is the same way. I know everybody that's on my side of the aisle is dedicated to registering voters. And the reason why people aren't registered voters in Oklahoma, and this is why I think it's fundamental to everything that we're dealing with in Oklahoma. It's a cultural problem. And it is that we live in such an oppressive state. Part of that oppression is taking away moral agency from individual people and punishing those who exert moral agency. And so we live in a system in Oklahoma that does everything in its power to suffocate the voices of anybody that wants to hold the powerful people accountable. And so it happens to me and Jacob. There's a whole system at the state capitol to keep us from holding them accountable. Now I want to go back to bridge building. We may not be able to persuade them to vote for a Democrat, but this is where I do think bridge building does happen. And it's the methodology that we use. And this is really, to me, the hardest part, because I think that, and I'm worse, in this divided system, we really want to dehumanize one another. And that is really what we have to stop doing. We really have to stop doing that. In Ireland, I'm part of the Irish caucus, and the reason I care about it is that because it was women involved in the peace talks that stopped the blowing up, literally blowing up kids in cars and businesses for a long, long, long time. It was women getting activated in that. And what had to happen to stop that kind of atrocity is they had to stop dehumanizing each other. You literally have to sit by a whole person that you cannot stand and say, this person really disgusts me. I cannot understand why they believe this, but you have to look at them as a person. They have a mama, they had a daddy, they had somebody in their life that thought they were an adorable person at one point in their life. Hopefully.
Even Ryan Walters?
Yes, even Ryan Walters. So, what I do on my social media, and I don't know if y'all have ever followed me, but I deliberately get in arguments I take on really like landmines that blow up in my hands. I don't know, he's from Noble, he's seen me probably once. He used to be in my district. But I do it to model for people how you can have a very intense conversation without dehumanizing. And if somebody on my side starts calling names, I used to be a school counselor and I had to teach this to little kids, but you call people by their name. My son got in trouble for calling a little kid ketchup head on the playground in kindergarten. And the kindergarten teacher's like, we call our friends by their names. And that's what we have to do on social media. We cannot call people dehumanizing names. And when I referee, I start refereeing that on my social media. And I think that builds bridges. When a Republican who will not vote for me sees me get on to somebody on my own side because they're dehumanizing the other side, that I'm setting a new methodology in place, a new pattern. Because if we can say that's against the rules, that's not fighting fair, we don't dehumanize one another, then that changes the whole cycle of what we're doing. It changes the system of what we're doing. And it shows people what it feels like when somebody sticks up for you that way, that you don't agree with it. And then we have more credibility when we do that. So I think that our methodology changing can build a bridge. Our Defense of Democracy folks, that's what they're doing. They're building a bridge because they're giving a pathway for people to hold government accountable. And that's what we did. I don't know how many of you all have been following the turnpike stuff going on in the state. Is there anybody that works for the Turnpike Association? Okay, well, I don't mean to dehumanize any of y'all. But in my district, it was very upsetting. It was very hidden. We didn't know what was gonna happen. They just dropped it on us that they're gonna build a turnpike between us and our water source. And we thought this thing was dead 40 years. And they just laid it out on us. Well, all those people you see up at the Capitol and on TV, that is the most bipartisan, diverse group of thinkers that you will ever see in Oklahoma. And it is amazing what they have done because they're focusing on their homes. Now, when the presidential election comes and the governor election comes, somebody will get on there on social media in their group and start talking trash on somebody's governor, and they shut it down. They're like, hey guys, we're here to save our homes from the turnpike. This is not a place where you can talk bad about anybody that supports whoever or whatever candidate. And you can go somewhere else. There's plenty of other places you can do that. But by focusing on their homes, I think that was a bridge building activity. And I think the last thing I'm going to say on the most recent election, we need a messaging around working class issues. And I know y'all have probably heard that. What does that mean for Oklahoma? Oklahomans are the most exploited economic people in the United States. I can pretty much give you the lowdown on that. We allow big corporations to come in, raid your land, take your oil, and just leave you there with a pitted out piece of land. I've been in energy committees, and these large oil companies will take these legacy wells, they'll come in horizontal and leave these two old elderly people had to go bankrupt because they were the ones responsible for cleaning it all up. You can go through scenario after scenario after scenario about how Oklahomans are not getting paid for what their labor is entitled to. So I think that's the big, huge umbrella issue that regardless of any kind of identity that we have individually, I think that those in Oklahoma that are outnumbered, who are being exploited and taken advantage of economically, outnumber everybody else. And you know, the French, when they had their revolution, it was an economic revolution. It was a labor revolution. We haven't had that in America yet, but I think we're about to get there. And I think Oklahoma would be a perfect place to start it. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. I think we need to focus on voter registration for the next 2 years. Keep staying connected. Keep reading. Keep doing your book clubs. Keep getting groups of people together. That's so critical. All of y'all are probably students of the civil rights movement. You know that the bus boycott took 18 freaking months. Is that right, Rip Munson? My senator, former senator? 18 freaking months. Y'all, that's serious. Our walkout was 2 weeks, wasn't it 3?
Sure.
If we would be able to put up with some kind of sacrifice for 18 months, we might get crap done. But we're going to have to really take some lessons from our ancestors about the amount of dedication and perseverance that it's going to take to do this work. But here's what we also know from the civil rights movement. Motown. Wonderful, awesome music. Kept people together. Trying to think of the comedy club in Harlem where the Apollo. That kept people together. That kept people motivated. So we have to do the humanities. We have to do the art. We have to do the concerts. We have to do the poetry. We have to do all of that for as long as it takes. And we have to stick together. Do not do this by yourself.
That's right. Yes.
You're prohibited. It can wear you out. It's scary. You need protection. You need people with you. You have to form your group. You have to find your group. You have to take care of your group. The reason why I barely got up this morning. I was since the election, it has been very, very hard. It has been very, very difficult. My mama died in March. I tried so hard, and then Kamala didn't win, and I'm like, y'all, this is gonna be very dark. We're in Oklahoma. We can see the writing on the walls. We saw who they just elected. This is a very, very dark, depressing time. But I knew if I could drag myself here, that my bucket would be full for another week, because I got to see all of y'all. And that's why I ran for office. I told you that. The reason I ran for office was because of 2016. Felt the same way. Oh Lord, this is awful. How are we gonna get through this? I said, I need to meet the people that are in the fight with me. I literally had to meet the people to know who's in the fight with me. Because if I could not see them, I felt isolated, alone, helpless, hopeless. That is the worst psychological state you could be in. You cannot stay there. So I'm like, well, I need to meet the people. Well, how am I going to meet them? Well, I need to run for office, because otherwise I'm a weirdo going up to people's doors saying, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. So I knew if I was running, I could have a walk card and, hey, this is my future. This is what I hope we can do together. And man, I'm so glad I ran. And you can do the same thing. Find somebody to help somebody. Find some arms to walk in with. I got to meet Jacob, and I helped Jacob, and he's helped me. He's been my buddy for 6 years now. So the sacrifice is worth it. Find your people. That's where you're going to find your bucket-filling moments. That is actually how you're going to endure the next 4 years, not 400. It won't feel like 400. It won't feel like 400, but it's only 4 years, and really we're only talking 23 months until we elect a better governor, and the Congress will flip in 2 years. Absolutely. The final thing that I really encourage you all to do is give yourself a break. You can take a break and step away. And I call this thing the campfire and the battleground. So you go on the battleground, and you do all these things. You show up at a Ryan Walters meeting, they won't let you in the executive session, and then you have to talk to the reporters, and you have to constantly be makeup ready or camera ready and all that. So you're in the battleground, you're constantly feeling, like you get fatigued, you have to constantly stay in there. But know where the campfire is. Pull away. Go to the campfire. Find your people. Feel up. Get your energy up. And when your energy's back up, don't stay at the campfire. Get back out. Fight the next battle. You start feeling your battery drains, then go back to the campfire. And so this is a campfire moment. And I'm very, very grateful for you all. I know we had somebody from McAllister. Where's our McAllister person? She came from McAllister. She's going to go Did anybody come from another Woodward or okay?
Ada, she beat me.
Ada?
Ada here.
Ada? Duncan?
Ardmore.
Ardmore? Where? Antler! Stillwater? Enid. Okay. This is a campfire moment, y'all, and you can keep the campfire going in your part of the world. And fortunately, because of what she's done, now we have a way to connect back into each other. And we will have these big moments together, but just fine, you only need 3. How many people did you start with to start your organization? 1, then how many after that? Probably.
We got 40,000 now.
Yeah, but then what was the number next after 1?
You gotta have 3
Probably
for a
3.
board.
3?
Yeah.
You started
To
with,
start a board.
yeah. So that's all you need to keep have your campfire group, and then the battles will come, and work together. Do not do this alone, and we only have 23 months to get a better governor.
Presentation pulled up. Okay, thank you, Senator. Our next speaker is is Lauren Riepl. She is the CEO and founder of Conscious Community Strategies and has lived in downtown OKC since 2005. After spending 15 years working in nonprofits and grants, Lauren decided to take these skills to help others be successful in their dreams and funding opportunities. She now works as a nonprofit consultant, grant writer, DEI coach, and public speaker. She spent over a decade traveling the world as a research assistant while earning 3 degrees in history and cultural anthropology. Lauren is also a dedicated change maker. I can attest to that. She actively works to change the way people understand and appreciate diversity, equity, and inclusion. Lauren achieved her DEI coaching accreditations from Cornell and the University of Michigan. When she's not following her mission in life to lift others up, you can find her on a run, playing with her dogs, or reading in a local coffee shop. So please welcome Lauren Riepl.
I think Mary read my speech before she got up here. That was like almost the whole thing I had to say. And I have to write my notes down because I am very neurodivergent and I cannot keep my thoughts straight or I will go off like Jacob. So as Mary so eloquently stated, I am here to build bridges, not tear them down. While we must tear down the system that is broken, we cannot leave a gaping hole in its place. We have to put something there. So I'm here to talk.
We're working on it.
I might have some slides. There's only 4. It's nothing serious. Whoa! It's nothing all that serious. But I'm here to actually talk about how to put everything we've talked about today into practice. I used to think that social movements needed to have a big impact, and I don't believe that anymore. After spending nearly 2 decades working, organizing, and volunteering in my community, I realized that the size of the group isn't the most important thing. As Margaret Mead once said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because indeed that is the only thing that ever has. Do you think there is maybe something to the power of one? I can say yes from lived experience. When you increase the buy-in power folks have in their communities, you start to hear about the change. People report having new relational experiences in their daily lives, including more emotional intimacy, setting healthier boundaries, and better conflict resolution. Sorry, y'all, it is hot up here. Hold on 1 second. Okay. It's officially that time of year where we don't know how to dress for the season. All right. Yes, I am wearing a shirt from the now defunct Oklahoma Mountains Coalition. I used to be on their development team. The actions of community engagement extend far beyond the individuals who participate in them. Large movements have always started small. Oh, we're not quite there, but that's okay. Perfect. We love it. Leave it up there. It's good. It's a good one. You cannot have thousands of people advocating for a cause if at first you don't have 10. That's why I think most of us can start a social movement within our community. And that's why I'm here today. So let me first introduce you to the concept of a local social movement. You don't need to be an activist or have leadership experience to start a movement. What you need is to change your mindset about what a movement is. The way I see it, we can't afford for major leaders to ignite social revolution. With the complex world that we live in, the revolution needs to happen quietly, in a decentralized way, and from the bottom up. Different people are able to see different slivers of reality, and consequently, the different social needs of many. They're the best candidates to address those needs, and the ones closest to it. How would they do it, though? This is where the idea of local social movements comes in. First, what are they? There are tons of academic definitions, but this simple one I think will serve us best. Social movements are purposeful, organized groups that strive to work toward a common social goal. Local social movements are those that operate on the level of a town or city, or even in smaller avenues like the college campus. There is no minimum number of people that warrants talking about a movement. I often find myself thinking about this image right here. It's this sea of faces with one thought bubble stating that they didn't think their vote mattered. I wanted to touch on something that was mentioned. This year, Oklahoma had the lowest voter turnout in the history of the state. Can you imagine what had happened if we had gotten our friends, our neighbors, to get their little butts to the poll? I am one of those dreaded third-party registered independents. I catch it from both sides because I don't like this, and I also don't like that. And I find myself being one of those people floating around in the middle that has no representation whatsoever. So I've chosen to become my own. And it's so perfect that we're talking about this now, because I'm a mentor for the YMCA Y Achievers program. It's a mentorship where once a month we go to inner city schools and wax philosophical with students about life and other things that matter. And this week's topic was actually finding their voice. And on the topic of movements, I just want to say, because I have to throw my historian chops out there, the lunch counter sit-in movement started right here in Oklahoma City in 1954 with Claire Luper and her youth council of the NAACP. The precedent for Brown versus Board of Kansas Education started at OU with Ada Lewis, Sibyl Fisher, and George McLaren fighting for their right to have class on campus, not at some separate entity outside of Norman. So these movements can change. We do have to look to our past to see where our future is headed. So what matters is the organized effort towards one common goal. On a local level, this could mean advocating for a more walkable, accessible city, which is my current passion project. Mobilizing artists in a neighborhood to set up an exhibition, or writing a petition to your local city councilor to save a park. The important thing about local social movements is that anyone can start one. You don't need to have specific credentials, experience, or even education. As long as you genuinely want to benefit your community, it is unlikely that people will question your efforts. If you're passionate about a social cause or change you'd like to see, do everyone a favor and start a movement. Even if it seems like it's small and insignificant, the consequences will ripple out. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, what do you want? Social movement leaders often think that they have to serve the community first. This leaves little to no space for connecting to your own personal aspirations. In my experience as a community organizer, one of the most important things that has been connecting to my intrinsic motivation for social action. Naming what kind of world I want to live in, what fascinated me, and what skills I wanted to be learning gave me the fuel that I needed. And trust me, if you want to be a community organizer, you are going to need good fuel. I learned this by first picking a cause that didn't suit me. After McCellon led a campaign in 2018 to criminalize panhandling in Oklahoma City, I thought fighting for the impoverished and the unhoused was the only thing that mattered. I started volunteering at the City Rescue Mission, the regional food bank. I was always calling Ed Shadid's office like every day. I think he was ready to kill me. And organizing clothing and toiletry drives. It was through these volunteer opportunities that I first truly learned what it meant to pick a passion cause and stick with it. But however, after a few relentless months in action, I understood that, as vital as it was, that fighting for the unhoused was not my cup of tea. I was crying and defeated all the time. I didn't have the stomach to keep trying to convince people that the homeless were human. I ended up feeling burnt out and frustrated and ready to give up. I was drowning in what I call advocacy fatigue. Words are hard. Since then, I learned that the first step to starting a movement is sourcing that motivation within yourself. Don't think about one big, lofty, what does the world need goal. Start with yourself. How would you like to change? What would you like to learn? What kind of culture do you want to be surrounded by? I asked myself these questions when changing my career path. Like I said, I have like a bazillion degrees in history. I'm clearly not working as a historian, but I can tell you a lot about it. I learned, I asked myself these questions when changing my career path 2 years after my poverty activism fell flat. I realized that I mostly yearned for authentic connection with people. I learned that over $3.5 billion go unawarded in grants every single year, and I was so tired of hearing people tell me that funding was the reason they couldn't follow their dreams. And that's when I realized that I needed to take my skills and use them to help the community, and that is where Conscious Community Strategies was born. The idea for my work came from merging my personal motivation with the need I saw in the world. To this day, this combination is what motivates me, even if it gets really messy at times. So, can we hit that next? Oh, perfect, you're so good. So let's get to it. Let's lay out some 4 steps for the blueprint for the Blue Dot, no pun intended, in which I hope you guys can learn from, because I am here to teach today. First is anchor your intention in not only a place, but a collaborator. If you're anything like me, your passion for change may spark a ton of ideas. It can be easy to start with one project and then go off on a tangent before seeing the first one through. It took me several years to get this business off the ground. I can't tell you how many times my dad was like, I've been telling you this was a great idea. Yeah, whatever, I got something else I gotta do first. So that's typical though for the organizer change maker type. And quite frankly, it's how the human brain is wired. Novelty bias was a helpful adaptation in the times when survival depended on our ability to switch focus quickly to detect potential dangers. And right now I think a lot of us feel like we are in danger. But in the context of community organizing, changing the plan before you give it a real shot isn't helpful. You need to stay with one idea long enough to allow yourself to see how it works and to really test it. So how can you do that? Well, that's where finding a place and a person is the most important thing. I first brought the idea for my business to a friend of mine at the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits that I really knew and trusted. But what about you? You're not starting a business, you're wanting to start a movement. The Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits actually has space for free for anyone who is a member. So even if you're not, you probably know someone who is. They also have community event programs, part of which is providing that free space. And this is a great place to start a group. They're also a great place to get trained if you're not talking to me. I was lucky enough to get support from a colleague who could help guide me through this. She met with me a few times before I got started, and having that accountability was really important. I recognize that I am very fortunate to have had that level of support right from the beginning. Your situation may be different, but in any case, I still suggest that this is where you start. And decide where your meeting spot will be. You need one, whether it's your local community center, your library, coffee shop, or even an outdoor location. Picking a spot and sticking with it will get you will ground your idea in reality. And it'll be easier for your mind to start envisioning next steps. So what is the next step? Prototype your activity or your event. Now that you've got an anchor, leverage it. Organize your activity, your meeting, or your event that you can invite people to. This way, you have that chance to start those discussions. Just like you found that one person to anchor your intention, think about one event to organize and invite people to. Venturing too much into the future won't serve you at this point. Instead, focus your energy to hold as good a meeting as possible. Then use it to springboard and generate your momentum. Hold on. So what are these 4 things that we need? We can still leave this one up, though, I promise.
Oh, okay.
Create an event description, decide on your communication channels, run your event, and ask for feedback. Creating that event description, this will help you think exactly about how you want to use your first meetings and communicate it to others. The easiest way to think about what you need is to tell others what you need. Ideally, don't make it too long. Don't make it too verbose. Most people stop reading after the first 3 sentences, so find a way to get your point across right out the gate. Decide your communication channels. I don't TikTok. I can't stand social media, but I know loads and loads of people really thrive on it, so it's about knowing your channel and the audience you want to reach. Because not everyone TikToks, don't limit yourself to also just one form of communication. We have to be cognizant that we are many generations, many faces, many kinds of people, and not everyone has a different way of understanding and interpreting information, so don't leave anyone out. Run your event. That's pretty simple. This one's the most exciting, as well as the most scary. That first meeting and session can just get really out of control sometimes. And there's many things that you can do to prepare for it. For me, it was practice, practice, practice. My poor boyfriend had to listen to me read this like 75 times. And this is still about 5 pages shorter than it started. You guys are welcome, I promise I got really bored towards the end. Okay, and then the last part is asking for feedback and get contact information. After this, if you want to say, hey Lauren, maybe don't bring the papers, that is definitely needed feedback. And then I'll ask you for your email and I will bother you about it. But this is also how we stay in communication with others. Amanda and I are friends on Facebook, and today is actually the first time that we met in person, but I had seen her commentary and seen her work, and I was like, I like her message, and I like what she's doing. And when I saw she was putting this together, I was kicking down her front door, and I was like, how can I help? I would love to be here. What can I do? And she asked me to speak, which was crazy on her part, but thank you. Because here I am. All right, so our third one is establishing regular So we've got our idea, we've got our person, we've got our meeting space, we know what we want to talk about. But are we just going to talk about it just the one time? Or are we going to keep having these conversations? Are we going to keep building that momentum? Are we going to keep going forward? Because we have to be about actions and not just words. We cannot just keep speaking in an echo chamber all the time. Everyone here today made wonderful points, but there are also points that we all already know. How are we going to take these messages, take these topics of discussion, and talk to people who may not want to hear it? Are we going to dehumanize them, as Mary stole from me? No, we're not. We are going to work on building those bridges. We have to learn how to talk to each other in a kind and meaningful manner. Someone brought up the United Healthcare thing, and something that I keep thinking about is everyone is so willing to mock this man's brutal death in the street. But what I see is a man who was brutally murdered in the street, and because he was deemed unworthy, his death is acceptable. I am unwilling to give up my humanity and my compassion, because humanity, compassion, and caring is why we're here today, and it's the message we're trying to send. So if we want others to care about us, I'm not gay, but I care about gay people. I am not a BIPOC, but I care about what happens to them. And I am not unhoused, but god damn it if I don't care if they have a warm place to sleep.
Right.
Just because these issues don't affect me directly does not mean I don't care about them. And that is the message we have to remember to tell ourselves, is that we are here because we care. And we have to be willing to care about people, even the ones we don't agree with. All right, I'm lost. I lost my page. I got really upset about that one. Okay, sorry. I've been having to take a social media break because it's bad for my mental health to be on there too much. Okay, we've all talked about this. Here we go. There isn't always a need for formal governance of your meetings. Just make sure that we're all going to meet every third Tuesday of the month at 5 at Scissortail Park. Be there, be square, bring something to drink because there's no water fountains. And then the final one is step 4, involving others by sharing ownership. Sara Cunningham is a wonderful example. Free Mom House makes me want to cry every single time I think about it because I think it's so beautiful. And you probably don't remember meeting me at the Women's March in 2017, but I marched with you dressed as Rivers of the Riveter and I cried the entire time. And now I have a free Aunties Hug and a free Sister Hug shirt because like that is the space that I fill in this world, and I'll be damned if someone's going to walk this planet and not feel loved. But you have to be able to share that ownership of your movement. You have to be willing to delegate and to recognize others who also want to help, who also want to get involved, who also want to stand up. Applaud snaps and applaud people when you hear something that you like. It makes them feel good. It makes volunteers feel valued, and they want to keep coming back and keep being part of that fight and being part of that movement. I am shrinking this down to be respectful of time. So, let's get started. 2 years ago, I had no idea I would be starting a nonprofit consulting firm. During the planning session, I thought, well, maybe this is just an idea. Maybe I'll just give it a shot, and if people don't like it, I'll go home. Until I worked for the state. Don't do that. It was a bad idea. But I remember thinking to myself, I might just be quitting to spare myself distress. But when I told this to my therapist, she said that often we're most afraid to do things that are the most important to us. So I decided to keep going a little longer. I made a deal with myself that if things don't start feeling easier before Christmas, I'll quit. And it was precisely then that it started feeling easier. I took some pressure away by letting go of specific outcomes and the need to be a perfect community leader. I decided to just see what happens, and indeed, things started happening. I grew my confidence. And I kept going back to this quote over and over again that I love so much, and I can't remember who said it, maybe Rumi, I don't know. But it says the world needs dreamers and the world needs doers, but most of all, the world needs dreamers who do. And on that, I want to read you guys a little poem. We're going to get a little artsy-fartsy. My mom is an art teacher, so, you know, when we talk about speaking about the arts, that's like a real important thing to me because I grew up with a person, it's going to be cry saying this, I grew up with a person who taught me how to find the beauty in even the most meaningless things. Okay, and I'm going to cry reading this because I wrote this for next Benedict. You don't know our story, the road, our path, our journey to glory. You sit behind your screen saying things that are just cruelty and mean. You tell yourself it's only a comment and take not 1 second to consider the impact of that moment could have on a child's life or even someone's sister or wife. Now, this is not about gender. As someone who was hurt, that I need you to remember that words do hurt. So before you spot your dirt, take some time to think of the impact of the mental health they have to have intact to keep fighting every day. To beat their own demons that stand in their way. I am told to ignore it and to leave it unseen. I agree, but that will not leave our minds clean. Of the words that have been said, especially the younger generation that are easily led. Be better, be kinder, stop being so vicious. Instead, be thoughtful, mindful, and gracious. And make this world a safer place so that we can all be creative and have our own space to be our fucking selves. No matter your gender, your race, ability, or sexuality, we have the right to be ourselves. So, with that said, you don't know our story, you don't know our road, our path, or our journey to glory. Thank you.
Oh, this is a link to resources if you would like to learn how to organize a protest, find your city councilor, find your state representative, know the permit process for organizing the march or whatever you want, and it also has my contact information. So please, by all means, check this out. Thank you very much.
Our microphone has stopped working on us, which is not a good thing.
Broke it?
She broke it.
I did.
I had a break. I'm going to just keep talking. I had a break in here, but we have an hour to go, and I have 4 speakers left. So if y'all are good with it and just want to keep going, that's what we're going to do. Get up and feel free to go to the restroom if you need to. It's right around the corner. And down that way.
Am I the only one, really?
No.
I'm going with you.
We're changing out some batteries. So we're just going to keep going. So next, coming up, is my friend Barbara. Barbara is a founding member and current board president of PFLAG Enid, Oklahoma. In addition to working for several years as an advocate for individuals living in long-term care settings, she was an active participant in Clinton-era efforts to end the military ban on LGBTQ service members. She currently works as a counselor in private practice, and so I'm very proud to present Barbara.
Thank you. Well, I came to this through a friend in Enid who knows Amanda. His name is Scott. And he said, I think you and Amanda are working on some similar issues. So this was just a day or two after Amanda's I'm going to have this event. And she said, I'd like for you to come in. I'd like somebody to come in and talk about self-care for activists. But guess what? Mary was a counselor, and she said most of the things I was going to say in just a little bit different way. So I'm sitting out there going, well, my 4 pages is now this, which is fine. It's good for you. Plus, I move things around just a little bit, okay? This is adapting. And this is something that we have to be able to do if we are going to be activists or advocates, okay? Got to be able to do it. So let me ask you this. I want to talk to you a little bit about performative activism and participatory activism, just to make a couple things clear, okay? Has anybody not seen Wicked yet? Okay. This is not going to give the movie away, but I'm going to use it as an example, and if you're in the audience and you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. For performative activism, there is a scene where there is a teacher who cannot properly pronounce Govinda's name. So she makes a real big deal out of allowing that teacher to call her Linda. Okay? Do you think the teacher really benefits from that? No. Okay? She gets to feel better about it though. A little bit later in the movie, there is a scene where the Wicked Witch sets free a caged lion cub. Doing that has consequences for her. Okay? That is participatory activism. When it has the potential to cost you something, that is participatory activism. So, starting a DeFi chapter in Enid, Oklahoma is participatory activism. Okay? At the time I started the chapter, and I do have to tell you, we are a 501c3, so we also have to maintain neutrality as far as party goes. But when I started this chapter in Enid, we were dealing with a very active Moms for Liberty chapter that was attacking our public library. It was exhausting. You couldn't get through a library board meeting, without having to deal with some of their mess. We also were dealing with a city commissioner who was elected, who had been to the marches in Charlottesville, Virginia, the Unite the Right marches. Okay? So all of this is happening in Enid at the time. I am there, an older woman, LGBTQ person, pretty isolated really. Like I didn't know a lot of the community. I'm a counselor. The folks that I do know who are LGBTQ are sometimes my clients, so they can't be my friends, right? So most of my friends are straight. Okay, it's just the reality of living in a small town. But I felt like I needed support for the part of me that identified as LGBTQ. So I thought if I need this, if things are this difficult and even for me right now, other people need this. So I went to some of my very, very good friends, and these are people who I believe would do nearly anything to support me, and asked them if they would be on my board. I got the three I needed immediately. We needed the president, treasurer, secretary to start the organization. I had them right away. Okay? And I had 6 more right behind me. Okay? So a lot of people were, yes, we will help you, we will support you, we will help build this chapter. I'm going to tell you, we're small. Okay? And part of the reason we're small, I started talking to some of the leaders in my organization. People are afraid to come to public meetings. Okay? We've tried the library. We've been most successful by meeting in a brewery. Okay? It's a second Sunday at Settlers Brewery if you want to come. We won't be doing that in December. We'll be later in December, but we will meet there. So, but we're also now having to look at safety planning for next year. How will we meet? How will we reach out to people in that environment and reach the people that we need to reach? Because a lot of the people we need to reach, a little bit different from Free Mom Hugs, is the parents, right? And their friends and folks who can become allies if they had better education, right? So we're basically saying, look, let us help you be a straight ally. Let us help you be an ally to LGBTQ people. And our national organization has plenty of publications online that folks can access to learn how to do that. And we are there as faces to help do that. We are parents, we are LGBTQ people who are there, who are available for that. So I will say that there have been times that is scary, okay? For me, just because it's a small town. If it was Oklahoma City, I might not think much about it, okay? But given the recent election results, I am a armchair student of history, and what I think of is Germany, 1939. Okay? That's what I think of. That's what worries me. But what gives me hope is the civil rights movement. And the LGBTQ movement, frankly, has been using the civil rights movement model for as long as I've been involved, which is since at least 1988, and I'm sure it started before that. Okay? So, that is how you really do have to decide. I say you have to decide what mountain you'll die on. If you're going to be doing participatory activism, you've got to decide what matters most to you. And the reason for that is because the participation can be difficult. Okay? It's great if what you can do is write letters to your congressman or your local representatives and you can't get out in the streets and march, it's fine. Getting out in the street marching sometimes is not fun. Okay? Making face-to-face contact with people is hard. Okay? I do want to say one of the successes that we have had in Enid, after Next Benedict died, I got a bee in my bonnet about bullying. So I went to, we have a local thrift shop up there that will give grants to 501c3 organizations. I went to them and I said, I want to teach anti-bullying workshops. I need training materials. I told them what books I wanted to use, and they gave me a grant. Gave us a grant.
That's awesome.
It took a minute to keep figuring out, because the way I wrote the grant wasn't what really worked. Okay, what I thought would work wouldn't work, because I wanted to reach out to teachers, not knowing that because of the current superintendent of education, they can't put anything in their classroom that hasn't been approved by Ryan Walters. So even though I was using books from an organization that is in no way particularly affirmative, okay, I couldn't get teachers involved. So I started using children's books. Okay, right now we're using a book called Making Friends is an Art, written by Julia Cook, and now we are scheduled to do a read aloud to children at our local children's museum, like it's an activity museum. We will be doing that while they are installing a kindness, some kind of electronic device where kids can walk up to it and say that they've done an activity of kindness today. Okay? So I'm anticipating giving away at least 100 books that day. We'll do that quietly. Like, we'll have people, they'll be wearing a pin that says P-Flag on it, and people can ask about the organization. We're not going to be out there doing we're not putting out a lot of flyers that are going to irritate people, because, believe me, Enid is conservative. Okay? So, we don't want to bring the wrath of those folks down on us, so we're going to do it quietly, but we're going to keep pushing this anti-bullying message. We will be moving towards education in that direction more and more, I think, because that's what we can continue to do. And this is that kind of thing of building coalitions. We help LGBTQ children when we do that. We're helping the community. We're reaching out to the whole community, and when we reach out to the whole community, we help our community.
Yes.
Okay? So it's kind of like poverty, right? When you reach out to help people who are living in poverty, you can help many, many, many communities. You're not just helping one community necessarily. Okay. So let's see. Choose a group. Okay, a couple of things that I did want to offer that I have not heard today. I heard this recently. I thought it was great. Choose an anthem. Pick your fight song and play it over and over and over.
I like that.
Okay? Make a fight playlist. Make a playlist of your anthems. All right? Back when I was in school, I started school late. I got to my bachelor's level classes when I was 40 years old. I played a song called Proud for the queerest folk over and over and over in my school. Okay? There are others, but that's the one that spoke to me then, and it still speaks to me. Okay? The question is, what have you done today to make you feel proud? Okay? That's my fight song. Okay. I don't feel strongly about it at all. Okay, also, you need a relaxing playlist. Okay? If you, especially if you start getting involved in things where you're out on the streets, or you are having to talk to the media, or you are having to talk with people who disagree with you, you're going to get triggered. Okay? And you've got to be able to come out of that and have the support system that you need to come back into yourself. Okay? So a relaxing playlist just to help you kind of wind down. The other thing I want to teach you, and how many other counselors are in the room, if you don't mind raising your hands? Okay, there's a couple more. Your counselors can help you with techniques. That's the other few pages I wrote down. Techniques to manage strong emotions. Okay? You really need that. There is a website, though, from the University of Michigan that is about, it's called, heck, I'll write it down up here and you can get it. It is about self-regulating, okay? Taking care of yourself if you are an activist, okay? The number one thing that my counselor / helper taught me that gets me through so many things is to breathe. Okay? When we are in situations like I'm in right now, you see me up here shaking, I'm not breathing down in my belly, down my ear, that means I am in fight or flight. Okay? My nervous system is like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Like, right? So your nervous system doesn't know that you're not in danger. The way you can tell your nervous system that you're not in danger is to take nice, deep breaths. Okay? And when I say that, I mean breathe so deep that you can feel it all the way down below your belly button. Okay? And if you can't do that through your nose, act like you're breathing through a straw and pull it the rest of the way in. Let that belly really expand and fill with air. Okay? And if you can hold it for just a second, go ahead and hold it. If you can't, don't worry about it, because some people can't hold their breaths. It freaks them out. Right? My body is not breathing right now. That's freaking me out. The next thing you want to do, though, is take a long, slow breath out. And I mean so long that you're pulling your diaphragm up and it feels like your belly button is trying to touch your back. Okay? That's how long it needs to be. And you need to do that 3 or 4 times. The thing about your breath is it's always with you. Okay? No matter what situation you're in. And I promise you, I have been in meetings where I am doing my breath work because there is stuff that is going on that is making me really uncomfortable, or I'm not being able to sit on my hands very well. I want to jump out of my seat and say things, right? And it's not a good time, right? So that breath work will really help you do what's called self-regulating. Okay? It is actually working with your nervous system, sending your brain signals that you are okay. All right? And then if you've done any kind of work around self-care, around grounding, you know, to look around, see that you're safe, right? See some things, hear some things, smell some things. That's how you take care of yourself. You keep breathing. Okay? When you start to shake, when your voice starts to shake, when you're a little scared, you keep breathing. And if you need to get out of the situation, get out of the situation. Okay? Get yourself out safely, and that's why you need a group. That's why I needed my board. Because I know they have my back. Thank you all so much for the work you do. Thank you for the work you will do.
I'm going to call up my friend Elizabeth really quick.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What is your last name?
Sweatt, S-W-E-A-T.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you can reach me through, we have an email, pflagok@gmail.com. We have some flyers up here that have the email address on the back. Okay? Love to hear from you. Thank you.
And I will say that a bunch of, all of our groups here today have left flyers and information all up here on the front table, so please grab that before you go if there's something you're interested in. I'm going to bring up my friend Elizabeth real quick. She is going to talk very quickly about a petition that she is working on that I want everyone to hear about, and then we are going to move on to Mr. Lance Preston. You're up next.
Hi everybody, my name is Elizabeth Devo. I do know some of you from working the campaign trail 2 years ago. I was the campaign manager for Linda Steele. I got to work with Madison Horn and Dr. Harris Till. It was amazing. So today, I am actually here. I am with Pro-Choice OKC, but I'm here representing Oklahoma for Children's Rights. There is a grand jury petition that we're asking you to sign to have a grand jury investigation into the former OKDHS director, Deborah Shireford, for willful, and all of these have to do with willful neglect of duty, gross partiality in office, fraud, perjury, unlawful destruction of documents, obstruction of justice, failure to report crime against children. The current OHS director, Jeff Carmel, willful neglect of duty, obstruction of justice, failure to report crimes against children. Amy Whitson, willful neglect of duty, false reporting, failure to report crimes against children, fraud, destruction of documents, and conspiring to cover up crimes against children. Current legal counsel for OHS, John Langford and David Hammond. Willful neglect of duty, fraud, perjury, failure to report crimes against children. The Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth Director, Annette Jacoby. Failure to report crimes against children, conspiring to cover up crimes against children. Public corruption and willful maladministration. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation Director, Angela Spurlock. Obstruction of investigation, violation of oath of office, willful maladministration, and willful neglect of duty. Last, W.R. Moon Jr. and Welston B. Ho. Fraud, perjury, failure to report crimes against children, intimidation of victims and witnesses. So this has to be Oklahoma County registered voters. This is a petition that we are asking a grand jury to investigate these people. Because, you know, I mean, we're over here fighting for our kids, we're over here fighting for our public school systems, but this abuse, some of this abuse is going on in our public school systems, and we need to have these people investigated. So I'm going to go ahead and put this out for you guys to sign. You do have to be a registered voter in Oklahoma County. We're also having a march on Tuesday. It's International Human Rights Day. So we're going to start at the Oklahoma Supreme Court, because that's where I feel like we need to start. And then we will march over to the Oklahoma State Capitol. We'll have speakers from Defense of Democracy. Armando will speak. I have a representative from the Oklahoma for Children's Rights. So I'm just going to leave this out here for you guys, if you don't mind, if you're an Oklahoma registered voter, or Oklahoma County registered voter, to please sign this. And then I will also be out on Tuesday. We'll be at the Capitol. We're going to start at the Supreme Court. We'll march over the Capitol. This will also be there for you to sign.
What time?
From noon. We're going to meet at the Oklahoma Supreme Court at noon. And we will then march over to the Capitol. So from noon to 3 is when we will be
And that's
active.
Tuesday the 10th?
Tuesday the 10th. Thank you. That's the best. Yes, thank you. So we are not going back. We're rerouting the rage. So Tuesday, December the 10th at noon at the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Please join us to walk over to march over to the state capitol, because we're not going to be quiet, and we're not going to stop. And I've heard so many good things tonight that I'm like, you know, listen, I'm not going out that fight. I started this fight in 1988, and I'm not stopping now. So if you don't have a voice, if you have a yours, I will use mine.
Okay, we're going to keep moving along. Lance Preston is a compassionate leader who has dedicated his life to making a difference in the lives of marginalized youth across the United States. Born and raised in small Southern Baptist town in Tennessee, Lance's early experiences shaped his deep commitment to serving others. After coming out as gay at the age of 18, Lance faced relentless persecution from the Southern Baptist Church. His resilience and unwavering spirit saw him through his darkest hour. I'm going to cut some of this off just for time's purposes. In the wake of his retirement, Lance founded Rainbow Youth Project USA, a national 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates a 24/7 suicide prevention and crisis intervention hotline for LGBTQ+ youth under the age of 19. Since its inception in April 2022, the organization's crisis center has answered over 42,000 calls from those in need and has provided free mental health counseling services to over 5,700 youth across 48 states. I know he is going to share some information that's going to be very hard to hear today. He's already shared it with me, and it's some very sober realities of where we are in the state and in the country. It was very important to me to have this organization here today, and I'm very happy that he's agreed to come and speak. So,
thank you for having me. I do want to adjust the numbers a little bit. My bio is old. We've now answered over 100,000 calls from across the United States and provided free mental health care to over 7,000 kids across all 50 states. You know, what I'm about to talk to you about is very heavy, so I do want to warn you. It does involve suicide, and it does involve mental health crisis for our young people. The Rainbow Youth Project is headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are an all-volunteer, managed and operated 501c3. Our #1 program is our 24/7, 365 suicide prevention and crisis hotline for these kids that started April 1st of 2022. Currently, Oklahoma is our #1 state for crisis outreach and suicide prevention in the country. We take an average of over 1,100 calls a month from Oklahoma alone. As a result, we have now opened an office in Oklahoma City to try to mitigate the risk of suicide here. Sadly, that we know of, we have lost 10 kids between the ages of 13 and 17 this year to suicide in Oklahoma. So the numbers are pretty stark and they're pretty dire. But there's a couple of those numbers that I think are very important to you especially. You take 1,100, it's like 1,165 calls a month on average that come from Oklahoma. 84% of those kids report being bullied and harassed in Oklahoma public schools. 54% of them report not feeling safe in Oklahoma public schools. Now here's the tricky one, that I am no longer allowed, as my dear friends at Defense of Democracy, Candace, and I'm no longer allowed to go to the state school board meetings because Ryan got tired of hearing it. 63% of our young callers cite Ryan Walters as the reason they do not want to live. 63%. Every time he makes some wild video in his car, our crisis numbers go up from Oklahoma. Every time he makes a hateful, bigoted statement against trans kids, our numbers go up. That's a problem. And that's what we're here for, is to try to mitigate that risk, to fight back ever how best we can, to push positive messages, to let our kids know that they do deserve to exist, that they do deserve to be respected, and that no matter whether a kid is queer, trans, straight, Muslim, whatever, they have the right to a safe learning environment, period. Our biggest case in the history of our organization was the Next Benedict case. And I learned a lot through that. That brought me to Oklahoma back in February. I now own a home here. Simply because of these numbers. We fought hard against Owasso High School. We worked with our partners at GLAD, HRC, to bring the DOE investigation, which just came to a close and found them that they had created an unsafe and toxic environment for these kids. But I want to tell you that's not the only school. We're currently battling Putnam City Schools here in Oklahoma over a trans child who has a name change, has everything in place legally, but their teacher decided to take their dead name on the back of their chair the first day of school this year and tell the students that that's what they would call this child. We've met with the Putnam City Schools and Hefner Middle School administration several times, and we're on the road to making progress. But what bothered me about that, and why I'm not trying to shame them, but I was told our superintendent backs us. So we're finding that a lot of schools here use that as a justification for harming these kids. And that's completely unacceptable on every level. Some of the other programs that Rainbow Youth Project does are not quite as heavy. So we do legally represent these young people in Title IX claims of discrimination, sexism, whatever the case may be. We represent them. We represent over 150 of these kids against 150 school districts across the United States. We also provide virtual peer support groups for these young people, transitional housing assistance when they're evicted. In fact, we just had an 18-year-old trans student turned 18 on, what was it, November 20th? And his gift was, you have to get out of our house. And what a lot of people don't understand is there are over 800 of these kids in Oklahoma County alone that are living on the streets. And CSU and Pivot are wonderful resources, but they do not have the space. They are over capacity. And you can't take an 18-year-old trans kid to, unfortunately, somewhere like the Homeless Alliance because you're putting them into a situation with, I don't mean it disparagingly, but it's a fact, experienced homeless people who have worked the system, and they create a risk to these kids of drug addiction, sex trafficking, you know, some really even more harmful things. So we find ourselves in a really nasty position when it comes to housing these kids, not only in Oklahoma, but other states. Something else that people don't realize is that a kid under the age of 18 in the majority of states in the United States cannot consent for shelter services. So they can't just go to a shelter. They have to have a DHS case filed or CPS case filed. And when this kid walked into our office on November 20th, the first thing that kid said is, I know you're a mandatory reporter, so I'm not going to tell you the whole story. Because I will not deal with DHS or CPS again. So the majority of these kids don't want to go that route, so they don't seek assistance. And they end up calling hotlines like ours, when unfortunately it's literally, our crisis team is a wall between life and death. It gets to that point. And that's why we're so thankful for like Sara and Fremont Hubs, PFLAG, PFLAG Oklahoma City, Brooke and I mean everyone at PFLAG all around. Sometimes their gestures of kindness and the small things that they do, a hug, keeps that kid from having to reach out to us in that last moment. It literally saves their lives. And I say that to say this. Ally is a verb. You know? It's a verb. It requires action. Allyship also means that you meet the person you want to ally with at their table.
Yes. Yes.
You let them decide what is racist, homophobic, transphobic, or what they find discriminatory. If your allyship ever becomes about you, you're not an ally.
Yes.
So I need you to be allies to these young people. These kids reach out to us and say, I'll be honest, we take 3,765 calls nationwide each month on average. Surrounding the election, we took over 8,200 calls. We broke up 2 suicide pacts. Kids who had grouped together on Discord and were passing around a digital copy of this book called Final Exit, which was a recipe book of how for them to take their own lives successfully. And they had vowed that if Trump won, that meant that this country thought that they should not exist. And they had planned to unalive themselves to send a message. Thankfully, one of the kids in that group from Alabama, it was on the cover of The Independent yesterday, you should read the article, got scared and called our crisis hotline, and we were able to connect with all of those families to prevent what would have been a national tragedy. And when I say we, I mean this. As we're sitting here right now comfortable and just enjoying the day, there are 151 college students who are in their graduate program for psychology or social work, sitting in a space about this size in Indianapolis, and they're answering those calls. Those are the heroes of Rainbow Youth Project. Over the past few weeks, some of them have even brought camping cots just to try to keep up with the high volume. The Trevor Project is at a 700% increase. The LGBT National Hotline is at a 5 times increase. We're all completely overwhelmed. And one thing that I want to say about Oklahoma is they always say these kids have a mental health problem. But they don't want to fund mental health treatment for these kids. You know? It's just, yeah. But I want to thank Oklahoma for welcoming us with our office here. We have some amazing partners here, Q-Space, Red Rock Behavioral Health, Laureate Mental Health. You know, I could sit here and name all of them. And our goal is to save kids' lives. Nothing else. That's it. Someone asked me a few weeks ago what my goal with Rainbow Youth Project was, and I told them, put me out of business. They didn't get that. I was like, make us not be required. But until that day comes, with every ounce of fiber I have, I will have people answering those phones, no matter what it takes. But I want to thank all of you for being here. It means a lot. And, you know, Chris, who leads our Transgender Action Committee, is actually live streaming it to our kids. They need to see this. They need to see that they have adults who support them, that they have adults who love them, adults that care for them. Because I want to leave you with a statistic that I don't want you to ever forget. 1 adult ally reduces their risk of suicide by 40%. That, my friends, that's our job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lance. Moving along.
And we do have brochures up here that has all of our contact info. Like I said, just sorry to add,
go ahead.
free mental health counseling to any 2S LGBTQIA kids who needs it. We don't care about insurance, we don't care about that. If they want mental health care, they're going to get it. So all the information is on those brochures if you want to take them.
So next, I'm going to bring up my friend, Chris Weir. Chris is a Stigler native, proud Cherokee citizen with a heart set on making a difference in rural Oklahoma. His journey started in Stigler High School, where he rocked out in band and got into mock trials and student council. Now he's a student at Northeastern State University. Chris is a community leader, a worker, a tribal citizen, and an Oklahoman, all driven by a deep commitment to protect rural Oklahoma. Chris ran for Oklahoma House District 4 in this last election to restore power to rural Oklahoma. He believes Oklahomans deserve a dynamic champion who will fight for their fundamental challenges like access to quality health care, protecting and funding public education, women's rights, standing up for tribal sovereignty, and rural way of life. And he's just an amazing guy. So please welcome Chris.
It's great to be here. First of all, I had been writing my little journal about all the things that I wanted to say and all the questions that I wanted to answer, and I decided not to bring the journal up here. You guys were asking great questions, and as the time started to tick away, and I realized that we were talking about a lot of different things I kind of just switched my mind and decided that I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey, and then ask or answer some questions. Because you're not going to get any realer of a, and I don't even think that's a word, realer of a answer as to what's going on. So my name is Christopher Weir. I grew up in rural Oklahoma. I've been passionate about this beautiful state my whole life. Bounced around all over the state. Went to college at OU. Hated it. There was about 40,000. I don't think there's actually 40,000 students, but there's about 40,000 other competitors. It felt like, and I just felt like I could never ever find my way in. I always felt like I was fighting, like even my friends, for spaces in places that I thought I needed to be. Student government, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. And I got rejected from 11 clubs in my first semester. I came from a school where I did everything. I was a student. Y'all heard it. I was in everything. I was the club leader for everything. And so it hurt. But I very quickly realized that was not the space that was made for me. That wasn't the space that was made for me. It wasn't made for people like me. You guys might remember the pandemic hitting in 2020. I was right in the peak of my college partying phase, and it very abruptly ended, and I spent 6 months in my mama's house. So I just got away, just gotten free, and all of a sudden I'm back home, just like that. I transferred to NSU because I thought that I liked the small school vibe. Fell in love with it, started up in marching band again, was a music major, was doing all these things, and was getting super active on campus. And I was just trying to find my way, right? And I still kept getting those no's. Those no's from the clubs, and not like clubs, like party, but like organizations and things like that. I was still having a really hard time finding my place. And that was because I realized I wasn't really supposed to fit into any of those spaces. I was a puzzle piece trying to be put in a different dang box. It was never gonna work. I decided to run for office one night. I was laying in my bed. I bought an $800 house off of a back taxes sale. Has anyone here ever bought an $800 house off of a back taxes sale? No. Okay, well I'm gonna be the first to tell you, do not buy an $800 house off of a back taxes sale. This house had $110,000 worth of medical debt attached to its name. Yeah, as soon as I bought that, I became very poor. And mind you, I grew up middle class. I had food when I needed it. And this was my very, very sharp awakening into what the real world looked like. There was meals that I didn't eat. There was times when I didn't sleep. But I decided to run for office one night. I'm laying in my bed. There's water pouring in the roof. I have tarps holding up the water, and it's like, it is just the worst thing that you can imagine for a college student and someone who wanted better. So I started doing research as to what's going on in Cherokee County and Oklahoma, and I found that Cherokee County was the 71st poorest county in the state. 26% of our population lives in similar or worse off conditions than what I was living in. And mind you, more than once I had a possum for a roommate. I came back from a vacation and I decided that I was going to change my sheets, and I pulled back that last corner, which happened to be the corner that my head was on, and there was a spider the size of my hand. It was trials, right? We learned. And if the worst thing that ever happens to me is that giant spider in that horrible house, great. I decided to run for office because my neighbors were living the same way I was. The people on the street were coming to my house to ask me for food. I had macaroni. I jumped in the race and was told that I was never going to win. I, spoiler alert, did not win. In a lot of ways I did. There's 4,700 people that voted for me. There are Democrats across the state. There are people who are progressive across the state. I had people who had Trump signs voting for me. I had people across the aisle that could see the vision of the future. I don't really have any regrets as to what I have done. You know, I ran a great campaign. We raised $25,000 in rural Oklahoma. I was told that it was impossible, but we're one step closer to making it possible. Thank you. I am gonna kind of open it up to questions. I do want to say a little bit about getting involved at the end. So, is there any questions about my time running for office, or about my age, or about my major in college that I still study? Yes, baby.
So I know you were on TikTok a lot trying to push your campaign. How do you feel that went for you? Like, did it help you? Do you think you could have done better at it?
I want to be better at social media, but I start recording and then I hear it back and I can't stand my voice, which, come to find out, is a little bit of some internal stuff I got to deal with. Not wanting to hear myself is kind of like a huge red flag. If I'm not willing to listen to myself, who else is going to be willing to listen to me, right? You know what I'm saying? So while I love TikTok, I love what it does. I love that it connects people. It connects 170 million Americans every single day. It is a huge third space resource that we don't have anymore. It's phenomenal, but it was not the tool for me. If I had done better, I think it would have been great. Yes?
So I know that there are a lot of people that I spoke to in these circles that feel as if they're either not qualified to run for office, or that they don't have the finances or the experiences. So are there organizations or people that will help rural Oklahomans and people run against these seats? Because the one big thing in Oklahoma is that, what is it, I don't know about this cycle, but in 2022 it was what, 70%-ish of the Republican representatives in Oklahoma had no opponent. So they filed, some of them might have primaried, but there was no opposition. And it would give a little more pressure if every single state was opposed. And that's something I've always wanted. But are there resources out there, Chris?
There are resources. They're very, 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 very limited. I'm gonna be so honest with you. Yeah. And when I was looking for the most qualified candidate to run for House District 4, I was never, ever satisfied in the qualifications that people were bringing to me. It was never, ever going to be enough. Why? There is no perfect candidate. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. There are opinions that I hold that you all will hate. I actually don't know that. But you get what I'm saying. I have been in rooms where I was the odd man out, and I had to find connections. I think the resources that we expect and we want are found in our communities. And I also think every single person in this room should run for office. A lot of people came before me and said, you don't have a plan or have one. No. Do it with $100. I literally spent 100 of my own dollars on this campaign. The rest was fundraised. Not a single dollar came from corporate pocket. Nice. Question.
I'm curious about what you tell people that are your age that don't want to engage in the democratic process because of what's happening in Palestine.
Phenomenal. This thing that keeps cutting out. Phenomenal question. And I don't know if I have the right answer. I don't even know if I have a answer. But I can tell you that the voter apathy that we ran into in Cherokee County, that was a result of pushback from left, further left than maybe what I would be considered. The pushback that we received pushes our party into a better place. Even if that form of rebellion, even if that form of protest was choosing not to vote. And I know that is so hard to hear for some people. I've talked to my county party about why people might not want to be involved with the Palestinian situation, with the Palestinian genocide. So sorry. I got involved because of it, and there were people that got involved because of it. But I don't think that there is one single answer that we can find to that question. It's different for everyone. I think my form of protest was running for office. In Oklahoma, I don't know if you know this, you cannot write in on your ballots. You can't write someone in. You can only vote for who's on your ballot, or your ballot is void and null. It also costs an absurd amount of money, $35,000 for independent parties to be put on the presidential ballot in Oklahoma. And that was only changed in 2017, if I'm correct. Prior to that, it was only the 5,000. And so the fact that we don't have voter ballot access, as much as the states around us, there are so many things that go into why someone might protest vote. But I truly believe and hear the Palestinian voices, and I believe that whatever choice they decided to make that day was the right choice. Any other questions?
Did you get support or decent support from the county and the state Democratic Party?
You are not going to like this answer.
Oh, no, I think I know it, but go ahead.
You are not going to like this answer. No. I'm actually running for Cherokee County Democratic chair of our party, so I have plans to continue to run and continue to get other people to run, but no. The state party did nothing for anyone outside of Oklahoma City, Tulsa, or Cleveland County. And I say this standing in front of one of my very favorite representatives who happens to come from one of those constituencies. And they are so very important. Those seats are so very important. But our salvation will not come from those 3 counties. Our salvation will only come from bringing the 74 other counties with us. Question in the back.
It's actually not a question, it's a comment to her question. I used to work for an election board. And I will say that the most calls, the most people coming to the board meetings, coming to watch ballots open, ask questions are Republicans. Yep. Constant. Very rarely do you see a Democrat or anyone from the Democratic Party show up to any of those meetings. And that was really, really frustrating because they, again, and they don't show up even in those big counties. There's no support from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so that is a beautiful segue into my last little bit, and I'm going to get off the mic because I know that there's a couple more people. Run for office. Yes. There are offices you didn't even realize that could be held, right? So let's start at the ground level, precinct level. You can become a precinct chair, a precinct vice chair, a precinct secretary in the next 3 months. And then you're allowed to be a delegate to the congressional level and the statewide level. The only way that we change what is happening in this state is if we have new leadership from the ground up. From Adair County, Oklahoma, to Oklahoma County, we have to have different leadership. We have to have young, bright ideas. And maybe they're not young, but they are new voices to the room because there are people missing. There are people missing from this conversation. So run for offices all the way down the ballot. Get involved on the precinct level. Get involved with your county party. And please, if you see me at the state party convention, know that I'm doing everything I can to make sure that there is change being made.
Yes, I wanted to get your opinion on question, state question 835. Do you have one?
835, was that one of the ones that we just voted on? Or is that the one that's coming up?
The one that's coming up and it's...
Open primary?
Yes, that one.
I think that if we do not uphold open primaries, rural Oklahoma is in a lot of danger. We are in a lot of danger. So if we were to have an open primary in my seat, we could very, very easily topple it to a blue seat, very easily. right? So let's say that me and Ms. Cummings decide that we're both going to run for this seat. We both run as Democrats. The current seat holder is a Republican. We need to be the two top performers in that primary to go to the general. There will be seats that we have not ran a Democrat in 100 years, that if we threw a Democrat on that ballot, just because there's only about 200 votes cast, we could win. And I'm all for it, and we are going to see major pushback from the Republicans. Major pushback, so expect that. Any other questions? Yes, Carrie.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for running, and I just wanted to make a couple of comments and address some of the questions too. I also ran for the State House of Representatives. I'm from Shawnee. Thank you. The Pot County chair, Democrat chair, she was instrumental in supporting my campaign. But we spoke to another lady from Shawnee and other places, and throughout our campaign, we spoke to so many people that are like, I didn't know there were other Democrats in Shawnee. It's because we don't speak out, and we aren't visible in the community like Republicans, because it is scary. I get that, it is scary. But the more you talk to people, and I think Dee can attest to this, the more you talk to people, the easier it becomes to share our message with people. And as far as like Erica's question, I know she is aware of Sally's List, which is an organization that helps women who want to run for office or who want to help campaigns. They're a phenomenal resource, but if you don't want to, and also Advanced Native Leadership is a great resource if you're Native American, but if you don't want to run, those organizations can also provide resources for people who want to be campaign staff. It's Democrats, we don't have campaign staff even that can really help our campaign. I was lucky enough to have a young man, Ben Parker, who's an incredible individual, and he just is passionate about politics. Neither one of us had any experience, but we had the second highest positive change for Democratic candidates in the state. So, and we raised $60,000 in Shawnee, which is very concerning. Have people with the passion, or if you have that passion yourself, there are organizations that can help you and guide you to being part of that. And if you don't want to do that, please look up these organizations and donate to them, because if you don't want to do that work yourself, and if you have the money to donate, please donate, because every little bit counts. Every little bit helps, especially for Democrats. And then, yeah, I think that was the big thing. And also, as Chris mentioned, for rural candidates, I went to so many. I'm close enough to Oklahoma City that I was able to come to fundraisers in Oklahoma City. And so many times people were like, well, you're not from Oklahoma City, you're not my district, so why should I help you? I'm not going to donate to your campaign because I'm in a solidly blue area and I don't have to worry about it, but I'm still going to donate to this area. Well, that doesn't make that much sense. We need every seat, or we need a more balanced legislature. And the only way to get there, the people in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they already have a ton of resources they can pull from, a ton of money they can pull from. They're and Cleveland County, because y'all are great too, but they have organizations that support them. They get tens of thousands of dollars from PACs and other organizations. So please consider supporting rural candidates. We need your help. We need you to come out force or to donate to our campaigns. That is really the way that we're going to make some progress in our state.
Yeah, the last thing I'm going to say on that is, whenever we run for office, whenever there's a lot of us, if every single one of us were to run for House of Representatives in our own seat, there is no way that Carrie would not have won. There is no way that my race wouldn't have been 48% or 50% or 50.01. When we have a saturated field of qualified candidates, it is so hard for them to tie down which seats they want to save. And then, out of the blue comes Ms. Carrie Keck, and she steals that seat, and we have 21 instead of 20. So get involved, go to your county party meetings, find a candidate you like, and knock doors with them. Thank you all so much.
So the library is going to kick us out at 5:15. So I don't know, is Angela here?
Yeah, Angela was leaving.
No,
Angela. I have a sick grandbaby at home. I drove in from Tulsa with grandbabies in tow, then left one at home, brought one with me, and he's calling. Just let me say, keep doing what you're doing. This is 50 years of advocacy work for me, 50 years plus. Power conceives nothing without a demand, never did, never will. So I work at OK Policy Institute. We stand ready to help support any organized mobilization that you have. We have organizers across the state. No expense to you. We want to support, work, and encourage with you. OKPolicy.org. You can find Angela Munson there. Bless you with this effort. And I see at the Capitol as a member, lobbyist, staffer. I was supposed to quit this year. Oh, no. I just couldn't. They wouldn't let me. I'll do a session with you, okay? Okay, you guys
And also, I was going to say I will be sharing everyone who spoke today, I will be putting out on my website with links to their organizations and ways that you can connect with them so you don't have to worry about that until in a couple more days. I've got one more speaker and then I'm going to let y'all get out of here. Don't forget that there are resources down here. I've got free stickers for you. We've got books, so just whatever you want to do. Once again, thank you for coming. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm Gary Harris. I'd like to speak just very briefly on behalf of Indivisible. As you know, it was formed in 2017 by former congressional staffers to organize resistance to the first Trump term. These are people who understand the legislative process and what legislators listen to. I'm going to tear up this because there's not time. We're out of here. I would simply say that we're still around. We have over 6,000 members in Oklahoma. We have a very good new toolkit. You can scan these to join our organization. The Indivisible has just released its third guide. This is Indivisible Democracy on the Brink. Very fine toolkit full of resources that any group can use to help enhance their organization. And I hope we want to be very much part of this movement over the next 2 and 4 years so that we can recapture, defend the Constitution, defend the Democratic Republic, and restore some sense in Washington. One final post note, I'm also an activist in the Oklahoma Democratic Veterans Federation, which many of you are familiar. We have some resources. We have a flyer here. I designed the flyer myself, so I hope you take a copy. No time to talk about it here, but any is open to any registered Democrat in Oklahoma. You don't have to be a veteran, as long as you support the goals of Common Sense for Oklahoma, improving the opportunities for veterans and for candidates who support veterans. I hope you'll take a look at that too. And thank you, Amanda.
I hope everyone took something away today that you can use. My hope was really just to bring everybody together in person so that we can see we're not alone, to give you some actual actionable items if you want, organizations that could really use your support right now, and just some encouragement and some hope and some inspiration. And I hope everybody got something from that today. I appreciate every single one of you for taking your Sunday to be here. This is the first of many things for me. My website is McCellon.com, and you can find me on any social media under the same name. But yeah, this is what I'm doing now, I guess. So.
Anybody wants to be in Sean's club? Wait, we're going to Sean's club.
Yeah, it'd be good too.
Sorry, I had to like sneak in the other side.
Yeah, this is probably good. I suppose the audience. Pick up. The real Bobby Kennedy, not the phone.
I literally got rid of everybody, including my dad and my There we go, I got that. She's very
Ask her if she needs it. I think It was so boring, so boring. And he is so boring. So boring. Why don't you go get a couple more minutes? Get some for Sammy. Ask him if you can have a few.
with a who knows what kind of stuff.
It was just working. I said a minute ago, excuse me, do you speak English?
Yeah. It's good for locals. That's the problem. That's when they come back. There's where the new battlegrounds, not even new, ever since mom's family was risen, there's your battlegrounds. And I'm telling everybody, that's the thing you have to watch for. Because if they're going to bring the powers back to the states, that's actually not the worst thing. Well, in Republicans, it's not going to be bad because they're going to suck, right? And they're going to tear down everything, all the other bullshit. But they really need power back to us in this state. If we pro public education, we'll find out what we're going to have to fund things that the federal government has been funding and come up with funding if
Our teacher that
turning on the lights at the club and telling you at 2 a.m. it's time to go.
And then